Thank you, Timothy. Brilliant. Well, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your weekend to come and spend it with me. I really do appreciate it. Welcome to the Buy Refurb Refinance Summit workshop. Now, for those of you who were with me last time, I do apologize again. Things should move a lot smoother today. So if there's any issues, just let me know in the chat box and we will sort it out. So, quick question before we start. What brings you here today? It could be that perhaps you haven't done a deal yet. You're maybe worried about making any potential mistakes because your first deal could end up being your last. Could be that you've done a couple of deals, maybe one or two, but you're realizing that some of the financial mistakes you're making means you're leaving too much money in the deals. So you're running out of cash a lot quicker than you're running out of ambition. Or it could be that perhaps you've been quite successful in property, you're in it full-time, part-time maybe, but you just want to take it to that next level and you're not sure how. How would it be if I were to teach you today how to borrow 90, 95, or even 100% of the purchase price? Think that'll be pretty darn good, huh? Understand finance options better. Absolutely, you will. By the end of this session, you will 100% understand the finance options a lot better. So how do we get to where we are now to where we want to be? The one thing that you have to know if you learn anything about property, one thing you have to know is how to buy, refurb, refinance. That is the thing that is going to keep things going and you'll be able to recycle your cash. So, for example, okay, Timothy, you're going about your daily business and you get a phone call from an estate agent. Estate agent says, "Hi, Timothy. I just got this amazing listing. It looks exactly what you're looking for. Do you want to come and see it before I put it on Rightmove?" And then you realize, I'm not actually destined for a life scrolling through Rightmove anymore. I've got agents actually sourcing deals for me for free. Pretty damn good, huh? Or let's say, okay, Simon, you found a deal. You've done it up, you're at the point of refinancing it now. So you've had the bridge, you've done all of that. You're ready to refinance. You get a call from your valuer saying, guess what? We have got the exact price that you wanted. And now all the money's back out in your bank account so you can go again. It's pretty damn good, right? Yeah, I love that, Simon. Brilliant, Tim. Yep, no worries at all. We will go through that. So, buy, refurb, refinance, how to buy right, how to refurb right, how to refinance right. Very, very important points. So, yes, hosted by me, Melody Sharifi. I'll tell you a bit more about myself a little bit later on. Just want to start with a quote from Kevin. So, Kevin says the most amazing thing about property investment is its ability to transform not only buildings but lives. So I'm going to ask you another question here. How long are you in property for? You have like the dabblers who are in it for 5 minutes and then it's suddenly something else. It's going to be crypto or it's going to be, I don't know, something else, stocks and shares. Or you have people who are in it for the next 5-10 years, let's say. Or you could be here for legacy. You could be here for yourselves and your children and the children's children, you know. So just type in the chat box for me, how long are you here in property for? Are you here for short term? Are you here for legacy? Are you here for 10 years? Let's have a look and see. Long term, Serena. Good, love that. 23 years already. Amazing. Long-term legacy. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got no dabblers here. That's all I wanted to know. Okay. Quick question, you don't need to pop it in the chat box, but just have a think. What does freedom mean to you? What does success mean to you? Just have a think about it, and we'll come back to that a little bit later on. So, two things that we're going to talk about today. The biggest factor that is holding you back and how to conquer it. Very, very important. And why BRR is the critical, most important skill to master, and how to nail it. Okay, so who better to explain than Kevin Wright himself? So I will put you through to him now, and we'll go through a short video from Kevin.
We're going to look at why BRR is the critical skill to master before you do anything else in property, and I'm going to show you today how to nail it. But let's look at why BRR is so important. See, people call it a strategy, and it's not. Way more important than a strategy. It's a concept. It's a philosophy that makes strategies work better. Let me explain. Now, a strategy is a way to get someone to pay you money to rent a property you own. That's a strategy. Yeah. And you get to choose what type of tenant you want to pay you money. Now, it could be, very simply, it's a single let. So we've got an AST and rent it to a single person, a couple or a family, and they own the whole flat or the house. They pay you money. Old as the hills, it still works today. Actually, it works better today than it's done for probably any time this century because of that limited supply of properties. Rents have doubled in the last few years. Mortgage costs have gone up, but not as much as the rent. So the typical thing, if you looked at in the early part of the 21st century, was you make £200 per month profit rent over mortgage. Yeah, that's been now. And in fact, I was in Chertsey yesterday with my Ninja 100 Club. These are the people. These are my big hitters. These are the people that have made at least £100,000 implementing what I've trained them. And there's a guy, Andy. He's from Birmingham. He makes £400, £500, or even £600 a month profit rent over mortgage from just renting ordinary terraced houses in Birmingham. Another colleague of mine, not a student, colleague Sue Sims. She's a big letting agent. She runs Genie Homes in, I think it's sort of Erdington and that sort of way. Don't quote me on that. My knowledge of Birmingham is not massive. But she's I bring her in as an expert, a guest expert in some of my mentorship programs. And she was saying a couple of years ago, simple 3-bed semi. In 2018, she was renting at $650. They're now over £1,300 a month. People deride single lets, but even just doing it the simplest way, you could get a good tenant. They're there for years. I mean, in the past, I've had tenants on single lets. I wouldn't hear from them from 1 year to the next. But maybe you're saying, yeah, well, it all sounds a bit too vanilla for me. I'm going to sweat that asset. I'm going to rent my property out by the room, not by the whole property. In that case, you'd be doing HMOs. To get it full, you will make more money per property. You'll also have more hassle because you put in. Okay, it's like ferrets in a bag, but it can work. That's okay. And you might say, yeah, I get that, but I don't want people hanging around in my properties for year in, year out. I want them in and out. I want them to pay me and then go. So you'd be looking at serviced accommodation, where people stay for a few days or a couple of weeks or maybe a bit longer than that. Maybe they're contractors. They're here for the next 3 or 4 months and they want to rent out a property and they don't want to live in a hotel. Hotel's okay for a few days, but a few months it gets a bit stifling. Or it's very close cousin furnished holiday lets. You could do all of that. And just create great experiences for people for a week or two. They're all different ways to get people to pay you rent for a property you own, and they're all valid one way or another. But maybe you're different to that. Maybe you're saying, I don't like people much at all. Maybe you're saying, actually, what I want to rent to is businesses. So you'd be buying commercial property. Or maybe you say, well, I like a bit of all of that. So I'm going to buy a mixed use property with commercial on the ground floor. And I can do any one of these rental strategies above. Or you might even say, and this is getting a lot of traction in the last year or two, I'm going to mix some of those up, and I'm going to do social housing or supported living. These are all different ways to get someone to pay you rent for a property you own. And there's a validity to all of them. Why isn't BRR down there? Here's why. Why does it sit up here overarching all of these? Because if you leave big chunks of cash in the properties that you own, regardless of who's paying you rent, which type of tenant is paying you rent, you're gonna have a smaller portfolio before your cash runs out. So BRR makes every strategy more effective. You can build a bigger portfolio with the resources you start out with if you know and you learn and you implement how to put cash out. Raise your hand if that makes sense. Great.
Brilliant. Now, why is now the best time? We've been noticing a generational change. So hundreds of thousands of old school landlords have already left. Excuse me. And we estimate that another few hundreds of thousands of old school landlords will exit in the next year or two. So this is the perfect time right now to take advantage of the situation. So you are definitely in the right place. So a little bit about me. I have officiated over 100 BRR events for Kevin Wright himself. I have officiated his high-level training, so his advanced training, which is the Ninja Investor Program. And I've also attended his year-long upper-level mentoring program, which is the Ninja Achievers Program, which is, it's not training, it's more accountability and taking action on what you've learned, implementation. I have also officiated over 100 BRR events for, not BRR, over 100 events for other trainers, not just in property, but also in business and the wider personal development world. What you may not know about me is I'm also an avid figure skater. Absolutely love it. So I came to it late in life. I think it was about 7, 8, 9 maybe years ago. So I started as an adult, and I just immediately became addicted. I'm very impatient, I'm very dedicated, so I was at the rink every day practicing. I actually entered my first British Championships as an adult within the first 2 years of stepping on the ice. And I got 0.03 points off a gold medal. Not that I'm bitter at all, as you can tell. But if you were with me on the 7th of September, 2023 at Gosport Ice Rink, where I would still train, you would have seen me in my element, jumping, spinning, going around and auditioning for the Christmas show on ice, which was Wizard of Oz. So fast forward a couple of hours later, if you were with me then, you would have felt the searing pain in my leg, and you would have heard the crack, crunch, crack as my leg crumpled underneath me on a jump gone terribly wrong. So unfortunately, I was left on the ice for about an hour and a half until the ambulance came. So I was actually melted into the ice. They had to bring a saucepan of hot water to melt me out of the ice. They have this on video. I was actually out of it cold by then. I've never felt pain like it. When I got to the hospital, they gave me ketamine. Do not know why people take that for fun. Honestly, that was awful. Didn't know where I was. I looked to my left, there was my mum. I looked to my right, there's my sister. They're both bawling their eyes out. I was like, okay, this is bad. So went into surgery. I had to have major surgery. It's meant to last 3 to 4 hours. It actually lasted 9 hours because of the severity of the breaks. The surgeon said it's one of the worst breaks I've ever seen, even worse than professional footballers and rugby players. So I'd done a pretty good job on it. Excuse me. So fast forward, I was in the hospital a week or two on heavy medication. Then the consultant comes to see me and he says, right, fibula's completely been shattered. Your tibia has a massive detached spiral fracture. So my tibia had kind of twisted, broken, and then come up on itself. So very strange. Consultant said, okay, here's your prognosis. You're going to be in the surgical boot for at least 6 to 9 months, depending on how fast you heal. You won't be walking unaided for at least a year. And I said to him, I have my British Championships in January. Bear in mind, this was September. And he just laughed at me. He actually laughed at me and he said, don't even think about getting on the ice. So I just burst into tears. I cried so hard. I had nurses coming from different rooms to see what was wrong, what had happened. So I went home, had my surgical boot on, had my wheelchair, and had a call with Kevin. Kevin said, right, Melody, you've been to my events multiple times. Now, part of Kevin's training is mindset, which is so important in everything in life, not just in property. And he teaches how to use a mindset to overcome challenges, like he did with his diagnosis of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2016. Very inspiring story. So he said to me, right, we're going to work together. We're going to reframe this. We're going to get your affirmations. We're going to get your visualizations. We're going to get you walking by Christmas. So I was like, okay. Like I said, I'm impatient, but I'm dedicated. So I worked on these constantly every single day. Now, 6 weeks later, I'd had my stitches taken out, but there was one stitch that remained in. So 6 weeks later, I noticed it looked like it was getting a bit infected. So I went back to the hospital and they dealt with the stitch and they said, while you're here, let's do an x-ray. So they did an x-ray. Took ages for them to come back. And then the consultant came back and he said, sorry for the delay. We just had to double check the date of your injury because we've never seen anything like this before. You are healing so quickly, you're ready for the boot to come off. So 6 weeks after the accident, not 6 to 9 months after the accident, the boot came off. 11 weeks after the accident, so the accident was 7th of September, 1st of December, I stepped back on the ice. Like Bambi on ice, but it came back to me slowly. That January, I did compete in the British Championships, came 4th, so I didn't get on the podium, but I didn't need a medal to show me how far I'd come. Fast forward another year, so January this year, 2025, and you can see me in the picture there, just come off the podium with my gold medal at the British Championships. Finally. But what I learned from this, thank you, what I learned was not to listen to people when they're telling me, you know, they're putting limitations on me, even if they seem quite knowledgeable in that area, not to believe the limitations that other people put on me. Your wife broke her arm at Gosport Ice Rink. Oh, Keith, I think it's a Gosport thing. My mum also broke her arm, not as bad as the leg. But yeah, must be a Gosport thing. Don't go to Gosport Ice Rink, guys. Anyway, let's move on. Who's Kevin? Kevin Wright, he's the person that you're here to see. Okay, so number one, he's an investor. He did his first refurb in 1983, which is before I was even born. He's a property finance broker, very important. So he has decades of experience, over 20 years of experience brokering deals from single lets to multi-million-pound development deals. He's a writer and a blogger. He's an author and he's a best-selling author. So there's his Amazon bestseller, guys. If you haven't and you want to, then there's his book there, Buy, Refurb, Refinance. Does what it says on the tin. There's no bullshit. If you know Kevin, there's no bullshit when it comes to Kevin. So he's a speaker. He's also an award-winning speaker. So here he is with some of his awards. If you couldn't tell already, he does like the color yellow. So there he is in his yellow tux. He's always in yellow. I love it. So awesome. Now he's also a speaker as a guest expert. So he gets called into other people's training as a guest expert. You may have seen him with one or two. It is very few and far between, however, because he picks who he wants to work with, and I really respect him for this, because I've had the fortune or misfortune to work with multiple other trainers in the property industry and other industries, and there are some people out there whose, let's say, their values and their ethics are not what I would want them to be. So I do respect that he picks and chooses the people that align with him to speak at their events. And he's a trainer and mentor. And the reason that he trains and mentors is because of his decades of experience as a property finance broker, not just an investor, a broker. So he understands all the ins and outs of the finance. So the education that he teaches is accredited. I think this is very important. Kevin is an advocate for introducing accreditations into the property training industry. Like I said, in my experience, there are some good, there are some bad. So I think accreditations separate the good from the bad. So Kevin was awarded this for his training, how he runs his business, and most importantly, how he treats his mentees. Frog in my throat, apologies. And what does he do now? About 25, 30 years ago, he came across a guy called Zig Ziglar, and he was reading one of his books. And Zig Ziglar says, you can get everything in life you want if you just help other people get what they want. And Kevin said, well, I could do that. And that's what he did. So his greatest privilege now is developing ambitious investors, people who are not satisfied with where they are now. They have that hunger, they have that drive to get to where they want to be. They just need someone to hold their hand and show them how to do it. So I'm just going to introduce you now to Matt and Charlotte. These are two of Kevin's proteges. From his training, they have learnt finance, they understand finance. They now have bought over £1 million worth of property, and that earns them £7,000 per month. Okay, so property success, another quote by Kevin. Property success is buying as many as you want, wherever you want, renting them to whoever you want, for as long as you want. So I asked you earlier, what does success mean to you? Keep thinking about this, and we will go into more detail a bit later on. Now, comfort zone, very important. We all know that the magic happens outside the comfort zone. So it's 2025 now. It's halfway through the decade. Does it look like how you planned it was going to look like in 2020? Are the next 5 years going to be the same like the last 5 years? We need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable so that the uncomfortable becomes the comfortable. Now, Tony Robbins, you may know him. He says, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And I love that. So I'm going to put you through to Kevin now to explain a little bit more about the comfort zone and why people struggle to get out of it and stay out of it.
How do people change? They change by understanding that they have to get out of their comfort zone. Doing what you've always done is going to get you what you've always got. Tony Robbins said this. So if you're going to change what property means to you, you've got to start doing different things. Because when you step out of your comfort zone, or when we step out of the comfort zone, the magic happens. But it's a scary place to be, because we're in our comfort zone. Life's nice there, but you're here because your comfort zone is actually not fulfilling you completely. You want something more out of life. But when you step out of that, you don't know what you're doing because you're doing something you haven't done before. That's scary. And here's what I see happening time and time again. And if this resonates with you, the good news is you're perfectly normal, because everyone goes through this. This is really important to understand, guys. So here's your comfort zone, and here's the fear zone. Oh my God, I want to be doing something, but is this the right thing? Am I moving forward, or have I got a big mistake? What normally happens is you step out of there, you make some mistakes, you have a bit of bad experience, you often cost yourself some money because you made a mistake. You're trying to better yourself, but actually you've taken one step forward and two steps back. You might have bought some training and that wasn't a good investment. You looked at it at the start, but it turns out that it wasn't the right thing for you. And you naturally then go back into the comfort zone, and you think that wasn't the best thing. There's got to be a way to do it. I just found out, like Thomas Edison, I found out one way not to do it, and then you have to go again. So typically people go in and out, and it's like a never-ending figure of eight. And does this resonate with you guys? Yes or no? Yeah, perfectly normal. Everyone does it. So don't think it's just you. Tony Robbins said, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. What would you do? What property deal would you go for if you de-risked it to the point you couldn't fail? What would you try for? It's a rhetorical question. You can answer that internally in your own head. Don't necessarily need to shout that out. But how likely is it for you to do something that was quite a big step for you by yourself and be successful? Almost no one does that. And here's why. Look, so there's 4 stages. You've got here's your comfort zone, here's your fear zone, here's the learning to get good at something, and here's your growth zone. I know how to do this. I'm just going to crack on now and really push forward. And here's where everyone's at. It's a constant back and forward to there. I'd say less than 5% of people can actually go from here to there and then on to there. So how does it happen? Someone that's already here, that's already, to use another phrase, that's already unconsciously competent about a act, task, knowledge-based thing, comes down from where they are here, they come down here and they interact with you, they mentor you. They either they pull you up to here, or they get behind you and push you up. Once you're here, pretty much anyone can get to there. Almost no one has the skills and the capability to get from there to there unaided. When I was a kid, I used to watch my dad drive, my mum occasionally, and I thought, well, that looks easy. I could do that. I got a rude awakening my first driving lesson, and I thought, really now, that looks. How does my dad make it look so easy? It's way more complex than that. Now, would I pass my test by trying to learn by trial and error? I'd probably kill myself. But of course not. I got a driving instructor to sit beside me and teach me how to drive a car until I could pass my test. I still had to be really consciously looking, signal mirror maneuver. And I might have even got that the wrong way around because it's a long time since I passed my test. Hey, there you are, mirror, thank you. But now, like everyone else, I guess, if you came here by car, you didn't even think about it. Didn't have to concentrate because you're unconsciously competent at driving. And this applies to everything we ever do in life. And it absolutely applies to property, guys. And absolutely applies to investing in property. Doing it on your own is going to be a painful and probably expensive journey. So that result that you say you want, Andy Harrington says it awaits you on the other side of the fear you've probably been experiencing. That's where it is. You'll find that quote on the right page in the book. So, comfort zone, fear zone, learning zone, growth zone. There you go. So we lack self-confidence. We listen to other people. Now, when you're learning, you're acquiring new skills. It's then your comfort zone. In the growth zone, you set new goals, you conquer objectives, you find your purpose, and you live your dreams. I found my purpose a few years ago. My purpose is empowering people to give them the life they want. Jim Rohn said the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You get to decide which it is. What he also said was the pain of discipline weighs ounces, the pain of regret weighs tons.
Love that quote. Now, I read in a book recently, the unconscious mind is constantly asking 2 questions. It doesn't care if we're happy, it cares if we're safe. So the first question is, am I safe? Now, Kevin is massive on keeping his mentees safe. This is his number one big priority. The second question is, who are my tribe? In the prehistoric days, if you didn't have a tribe, you were dead. So the reptilian brain is constantly asking, am I safe? Who is my tribe? Now we'll talk a little bit more about the tribe part later on in this. I'm just going to move on because I don't want to run late. I'll tell you a little bit now about property chats, okay? So Kevin started property chats because he was frustrated with the typical property networking meetings where you go, you pay money and you sit in a room and then you're talked at by a speaker or speakers and you don't really have any time to network with people. So he created this as the antidote to the typical midweek evening property meeting. One thing that you'll hear from Kevin a lot is observe the masses and do the opposite. So he has observed the masses of property network meetings here and done the opposite. So here's why it's different. It's completely free. There's no fees. There's no speakers. There's no bullshit, like I said earlier. Just chat. You just talk with people on the same wavelength, on the same journey as you. And there's a unified monthly meeting date for all the meetings across the country, which is the first Thursday of every month. There we go. So if you want to experience a different kind of property meeting, just go to propertychats.com and find your nearest one. So I asked you earlier, what does success mean to you? What is the biggest factor holding back your success? Another quote from Kevin, I love this also. We are the prisoners of our own beliefs. We see only what aligns with those beliefs and we miss everything else. We delete everything else. Excuse me. So what is the biggest factor holding you back? What I've seen is with a lot of people, they'll say, oh, it's leads. Oh, I can't find any deals. I don't have enough experience. I don't have this, that, the other. But what I found is it's actually finance. It's knowledge of finance, understanding of finance. Most trainers say, right, this is a strategy. This is how we borrowed the money. But they don't actually understand the finance part of it. So let me ask you another question. How much do you need to earn from property? As from my experience, officiating all these events for Kevin and for other people, around £3,000 a month gets people out of their day job. If you're on the higher rate, if you're a higher rate taxpayer, then it will be around £5,000. And a lot of people have an aspirational goal of £10,000 a month. So have a think about what you want to get from your property portfolio. How much do you need from it to be satisfied? Yeah, so the missing factor is always going to be finance. Financial naivety is the biggest limiting factor that stops people from achieving their goals. Another quote from Kevin, love it. So I'm just going to introduce you to a few more of Kevin's proteges. So this is what happens when you understand finance, when you get good at finance. We've got Harpreet. He's made £400,000 clear profit from flipping properties at auction. He's now earning just under £3,500 a month. Steve's got over £1 million of equity in his properties. Apologies, before we go, he has £5,000 a month. And fun fact, Steve also met his now wife at one of Kevin's events. So we also matchmake, guys. Matt and Charlotte, we met them earlier. So they bought over £1 million worth of property and they're earning £7,000 per month. So what did Harpreet, Steve, Matt and Charlotte and many others learn about finance? They learned the top secret. So the biggest secret in finance, which is bridging finance. This is the missing piece of the puzzle for most people. And what they also learn is that bridging is not the last resort of the desperate investor, which is what a lot of people think it is. Oh, something's gone wrong, we have to get bridging. No, it's the first choice of the intelligent investor. Another quote from Kevin, knowledge dissipates fear. Once you know what you're doing, you're no longer scared. People come to us and say, I've heard bridging finance is expensive. Compared to what exactly? You can say, I don't want a Ferrari, it's way too expensive compared to a Mini. Well, yeah, but you're not going to get the same driving experience, are you? And also, we will go into a bit more detail later on with the maximum offer matrix, which is where you calculate the maximum you can afford to pay. And we'll show you how you can absorb the bridging costs into the calculations. So a few bridging finance misconceptions. We'll go through these and I'll give you some case studies of these later on today as well. So my income isn't good enough or my credit rating isn't good enough. Well, bridging is asset-based lending. So they focus on the asset that you're buying, not on your income or your personal circumstances. Cost of bridging will wipe out my profits. Like I just said, the cost of bridging is actually absorbed within your profits when you learn how to calculate the maximum offer matrix properly. I don't have enough cash to do this. I can guarantee that by the end of this Zoom call, you will understand why you need way less cash than you believe you do right now. Really exciting stuff, guys. So what did Kevin teach Harpreet, Steve, Matt and Charlotte and many others? There's the quote: to observe the masses of property investors and do the opposite. Now, Kevin really lives by this. He has observed the masses of property trainers and done the opposite. Property chat meetings and done the opposite. There's a whole lot more that we'll go through later on that shows how he's observed the masses and done the opposite. Now, Kevin's trainings really are one of a kind. I am very fortunate. I have seen the trainings from a multitude of other trainers, and no other training is teaching what Kevin is teaching. 100% guarantee that. So this is a whole package, start to finish. That's what they learn. Now, I thought it crashed then. There we go. So here's a great example I want to share with you. This is Matt and Charlotte. We met them earlier. They bought a flat at auction and completed in 11 days. And this was a flat that no one else wanted. So I'm going to pop you over to Kevin again, show you how they bought it and why no one else wanted it. And just before that, another quick quote. Don't project your view of the world onto other people. They view the world through the prism of their own beliefs. We all do. We all view the world through the prism of our own beliefs. It's a neuro-linguistic programming. So I'll pop you through to him now.
Let's start with Matt and Charlotte. The first deal I ever mentored them on. Here's the key lesson. Don't project your view of the world onto other people, because they view the world from the prism of their own beliefs. Now, it's my first deal that I mentored Matt and Charlotte on. They bought a flat at auction. It didn't sell at auction. They bought it for $93,000, and the guys that I work with in the brokerage, we got the bridging finance through in 11 days. Auctioneer gave us 28 days, but we had 11. That's all we needed. Why was that? Matt had a really good solicitor, and he was on the ball. Whenever Trinity in the brokerage said, "Can you give us this, Matt?" he was there, bang, within a couple of hours. Now, why didn't anyone else want to buy this property? Two reasons. Let's look at them. Here's the first one. Matt and Charlotte found out what the owner paid for it on Land Registry. Well, there's other sites as well. And 5 years earlier, the woman that owned this flat bought it for £147,000. Because of the numbers on it, didn't work at more than 100,000. Had to be bought below 100,000 to make it a deal. I think almost no one bid for this property because they made an assumption, oh, no one's going to lose 50 grand on that. They're never going to let it go. 50 grand. They're never going to make a 50 grand loss. But she did. Now, we don't know what her situation was, but for her, taking a 50 grand hit on the price she paid for it 5 years earlier was her least worst outcome. Can't imagine she was pleased about it, but it was, to her, she'd take 50 grand to get rid of that flat. 50 grand loss to get rid of that flat. Everyone that said she'll never do that, in their head, oh, I'd never lose 50 grand on a property, so she won't either. They missed the deal just because the way they thought. The first reason was that they didn't think that anyone would lose 50 grand, be prepared to take a 50 grand loss on the property. Second was, now the flat was really good condition, needed a very minor redecoration and that type of thing. The problem was the communal areas. Now, when you walked in and up the staircases to each floor on the flat, it was awful. The smell was overpowering. The carpets were sodden wet. You squelched as you walked up the stairs. The paint was falling off the walls. Paint was peeling. And here's the conclusion that I think most people came to. They said, we don't own the communal areas, we only own the flat. We can fix the flat up, probably cost five, no more than 10 grand. We can't do that. If we can't fix the problem, we're not bidding. Matt looked at it and he said, it's just a few loose tiles. I'm sure that's what it is. There was a few of the roof tiles were misplaced. So every time it rained, water poured in. So he said, I'll fix it and I'll price it up. Yeah, I'll put new carpets in, redecorate it, we'll fix a few tiles and it won't cost much money. I'll just do it. Virtually unopposed, they got it agreed at 93,000 and bought it. Here's where that started to pay off. So Matt's in there, he's ripped the carpets out, he's been up and fixed the roof, so it's now watertight. Ripped the carpets out, now doing the redecoration and about to put the new carpets in. In walks a guy, and he said, can I ask you what you're doing in this building? So he explained, well, I've just bought this flat, and this is all mess, I've fixed the tiles. Now he got the real story. The guy that just walked in was a managing agent for the block. So what had been going on, the other leaseholders, the other flat owners, had stopped paying their maintenance charges, monthly maintenance charges, several months ago, and said, we're not paying it until you fix the roof and redecorate that. The managing agent, acting for the freeholder, said, we're not doing anything until you pay all your maintenance fees. Classic standoff. Now here's the kicker. Managing agent said, well, you're part way through. You might as well finish off the job and send me your invoice. So, didn't actually cost him a penny because he got all that refunded. So, all he had to do was to spend a £7,000 on the flat internally. The rest the freeholder paid for, and that got it increased. So we refinanced it. Isaac in the brokerage refinanced it, £150,000. Got a holiday mortgage because this is down in Bournemouth, so Matt and Charlotte are holiday let landlords. Refinanced at 112,000, all cash out. Very first deal with me that I mentored on, all cash out, and this property makes 30 grand a year for them. Just this property, but if they thought like the masses and not observed the masses and did the opposite, they wouldn't own that property because they'd have walked away like everyone else did. Raise your hands if you're understanding this. Right, okay. What did they go on to do? What did I go on to help them with? They bought an illegal HMO. It was a guest house, but it was illegally running as an HMO for 220. By converting it to a holiday let and 6 rooms, they refinanced it at 500k, all money out. They then bought a block of flats, mine, for 335. Dilapidated block of flats, refinanced it for 680, £7,000 a month, and they're not done yet. I mean, they'll be up to £10,000 a month and more. But let's just take that £7,000 a month. Look at lifetime value of what they learned, guys. £7,000 a month. So per year, 84,000. The 10-year value of what they've learned is going to convert to 840,000. The 20-year value, 1,680,000. In 50 years, well, it's probably 5 million plus. We hear commonly we talk about return on investment. That's a return on investment, guys. Incredible return on investment. And even if, like some of my other mentees, they're not there yet, just half that, £3,500 a month, you're still looking at £1 million return on investment over a 20-year period. And you're like most people in property. We're not in it for the next 5 minutes, we're in it for the next 20 years or more. They wouldn't have got a mortgage on it because, remember, we look for specifically unmortgageable properties. So that had never got a mortgage on it because the mortgage lender's valuer would have walked in the door and said, I'm already not mortgaged on this. I don't care what the flat's like. Just if I'm squelching on the carpet, this ain't mortgageable. Yeah. So they bought it with bridging finance. So they'll put 25% down, the bridging lender lend the rest. All the case studies I'm going to show you, they were bought with bridging finance, not always with the 25% deposit. We're going to cover that this afternoon because there's 5 different types of bridging. I'm going to share with you how they work, and they don't all need 25% down. Remember what I said to you earlier? What if you knew how to borrow 90, 95 or 100% on 100% of the property? I'm going to show you deals that did that this afternoon. I'm going to show you how to borrow 100% of the purchase price this afternoon. Okay, you still need some cash.
And we will be showing you that today as well, so don't worry about that. So how great was that? Lifetime value. Remember, I asked you earlier, are you in it for legacy? Are you in it for 5 minutes? So when you work it out like this, even half of that, £1 million over 20 years, that's a damn good return on investment for them, I think. So let's move on. So what else did Kevin teach Harpreet, Steve, Matt and Charlotte and many others? So he taught them the 5 core strategies and the 7-step implementation system to make property work for them. So I'm just going to go through these as headlines, but I will go into more detail after the break. So step 1, 7 simple steps to predictable BRR outcome. So 1, find a problem unmortgageable property. Step 2, calculate the maximum you can afford to buy it for to make a decent profit. Step 3, use that figure to make your offer. Step 4, get your offer rejected by the agent or the vendor. Step 5, follow up monthly with the agent or the vendor to assess their increasing motivation. Step 6, when the vendor motivation aligns with your previously rejected offer, you have a deal. And step 7, refinance the project to recycle your cash back out into your bank account so you can go again. So for step 1, they had the 3-trigger deal finder. So this taught them how to find unmortgageable properties. So the properties that they'd be able to add the most value to and had the least competition. For step 2, they had the maximum offer matrix. I mentioned this earlier, so I will go through this in more detail a bit later on. Actually, Kevin will. Does it much better than me. Step 3, they had the negotiation transformer. Now this is brilliant. This is life-changing. Kevin is also an expert in language patterns, in neuro-linguistic programming, psychology, and human behavior. So he adapts all of this and how to use it in property. And to be honest with you, I have used this in life in general with the kids, with buying a car. It's absolutely incredible. We'll go into more detail a bit later on. So step 4, money left in modulator. So this would explain to them how long it would take them to get the money back out if they had to leave any in it. And if it was too long, too much money left in, then it would be a flip project. Step 5, the motivation curve manager. So this is a system to use in order to follow up every month. Step 6, they would go to WP Property Finance in order to get the bridge. And step 7, WP Property Finance again to refinance it back out. So one thing that I see that stops people from getting started is they like to get everything perfect in their head. So it's kind of like saying, you know, I'm going to drive to Manchester, but I'm only going to leave when I know that all the traffic lights are green. You're never going to leave. You're never going to start. So when you have a step-by-step system and you take the first step, you're much more likely to succeed. I know we have some people with quite a bit of experience in here with us as well already. So how long did it take Harpreet, Steve, and many of the others to become successful? So it took them 3 hours to learn what to do, and that's the first module fast funding formula. Like Kevin says, the courage to begin massively outweighs the desire to be perfect. So the 3-trigger deal finder I mentioned, to find unmortgageable properties, it's on weekdays from 6:30 p.m. till 9 p.m. Not every day. This is usually once a month, possibly twice a month, depending on what's going on that month. So it took them 3 hours to learn what to do, 14 hours to learn how to do it, and between 7 to 28 days to be fully operational. Now, what do I mean by that? Fully operational, they were finding deals, they were calculating their maximum offer matrix, they were making offers, and they were getting their offers rejected. So what more did Kevin teach them? He taught them the ninja tactics to build a whole property portfolio from one single pot of cash. Just recycle that same single pot of cash, which usually grows as well. Now, this is the only UK training delivered by an experienced property finance broker. There may be a few other property finance brokers with the level of experience that Kevin has, but they don't want to teach, they don't want to mentor. But this is Kevin's calling in life. So here we go, the 5 focus areas here. Now we'll go in a little bit more detail. Fast funding formula. So this, if Kevin was to create a module to teach mortgage brokers, this would be that module. So after going through this module, his proteges knew more than most mortgage brokers did about finance. So I'm going to rush through these a little bit, guys. So I don't want to keep you too late, but we will again go into more detail on this a bit later on. So with this, they could buy problem properties that they couldn't buy any other way. They could buy much faster, negotiate much bigger discounts, bridge creatively. This is a big one. So you use a lot less of your own cash. They could refurb properties before they bought them. Again, we'll go into more detail after the break. And they could use their own other properties instead of cash and buy portfolio at massively discounted prices. So that is fast funding formula inspired funding. The next module is a negotiation transformer. So this is powerful positioning, making them irresistible to estate agents. So they would source the deals for them for free. And I have experienced this myself from the very first phone call that I made. And that is using these 5 icebreakers. Amazing. A lot of other trainers, they'll have like this little script that they'll give to people and say, right, just go to estate agents and say this. They know this. They're not stupid. As soon as they start, they just switch off. They switch off completely. With these 5 icebreakers, you make them your own. And it's incredible to see. Just try once and see the difference in their tone, the difference in how they speak to you after using these. It's about taking control. So apologies, go back. Using emotional language and logical language and using them in the right places. Again, this is all about human behavior, understanding people, psychology. So we have JV Profit Retainer. Now this is how to get the maximum return on your investment. Here's where I've noticed a big difference with other trainers. They will often tell you to go find a joint venture or say, you know, the money's in the room, talk to people. But what they don't tell you is that the majority of these joint ventures end up in tears or court or both. So this module teaches the legalities of who they can borrow from and who can even know about their deals to keep them safe. Like I said, Kevin is massive on keeping his mentees safe. So this is another great example of observing the masses and doing the opposite. So to sum up, they don't always end well. Private investors are usually cash limited. So it's usually from a place that is irreplaceable, like savings or inheritance. So it's not easily replaceable. And for this reason, they can act unpredictably and emotionally and irrationally and pull out last minute or worst case scenario, very last minute after exchange. The next module is Rapid Cash Recycler. So this is all about fast fluid finance, how to pull the maximum of your cash back out and back into your bank account to go again. So this is based on Kevin's decades of experience working with mortgage lenders, valuers, understanding how they think, understanding what they're looking for and how to present it to them. So there is a specific pack that Kevin teaches his mentees how to create and how to introduce it to the valuers. So yeah, another point on that I will put, valuers initially are always going to be focused on the purchase price paid. So we have to show them the value that we've added in a particular way. A final module is Ninja Investor Strategies. So this is how to have a cash buyer mindset rather than a mortgage buyer mindset. So it's all about implementing what they learned in the fast funding formula. These are the actual strategies. So looking for problem unmortgageable properties, knowing that they can solve the problem and add exponential value, and making an offer on every property as long as they can solve the problem, and following up, absolutely following up. Deed of solvency there, again, this is keeping his mentees safe. I don't know anyone else who teaches this. So there we go, the 5 focus areas. So, excuse me. How did the Ninja Investor Digital transform them and many others? So they got film studio quality. This is, honestly, I've seen the videos that other trainers have. I'm not saying they're bad quality, not at all. However, these are highest quality that I've ever seen. These are incomparable to other trainers. So 17 hours video training, and it is lifetime access. So a lot of trainers, again, they do 6 months, 1 year, and then you've got to pay again if you want access again. And Kevin understands, you know, life can get in the way, things change, strategies change. People may want to come back to the training again and again. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, you know. So it's lifetime access. It's about making people successful, not building an empire for him. So here's a little snippet of what it's like. There is a little snippet. There we go. Okay, so here are the modules. They're all broken down into several sections. There we go, several sections. And these are just like bite-sized videos. They're about 15 to 20 minutes each. They're all titled, so you can easily go back and find what you were looking for. Okay, so the Zoom Call 3 Trigger Deal Finder meetings. So here is where they found the most profitable properties with the least competition. They learnt the biggest mistake that loses deals. They discovered how to disqualify a deal in less than 10 seconds, which saved tons of time browsing through Rightmove. And they learnt the properties that mortgage lenders hate, so to stay away from those. Now, one massive thing is the implementation days. One thing I've seen, the biggest flaw with a lot of other trainers is the lack of ongoing support afterwards. So what Kevin's mentees got are quarterly in-person days. So this is all-day event in person with Kevin himself. So this is Kevin leading this. And they could do whatever they wanted on the day. They could find BRR suitable properties, deal with estate agents, work out their maximum offer matrix, follow up rejected offers, get their bridging finance approved, refinance onto a mortgage, whatever they wanted to do on that day. Kevin was there to help them implement it. And it's just literally these 7 simple steps to a predictable BRR outcome. So what they also got was a private Facebook group. Now, this is important because this is a place where they brainstorm challenges, they shared successes, and they ask questions. So Kevin is in this group every single day, personally answering questions. So they knew that it came straight from the horse's mouth, right? Every single day he is in that group answering their questions. So what changed about Harpreet, Steve, Matt, and Charlotte, and many others? They stopped worrying about the price of getting started, and they saw the true cost of staying exactly where they were. Now, what I've seen is when people went through Kevin's training, they had different types of gains. So obviously there's financial gains, so there's more cash in the bank from flipping properties, monthly cash flow from renting them out, capital appreciation, and a better lifestyle. But what they also got was strategic gains. So they went on to do bigger deals, multiple deals, built relationships with agents, key associations like Rick's Valuers, and they had a community, a tribe. Again, I'll go through that a little bit more later on. Not only that, but they gained personal gains. So every single person had a massive boost in confidence having done the training. They gained control of their life, so they gained control of their time, more self-worth and more serenity. So a lot of the issues, a lot of the stresses that they had dissipated. Now, what did Kevin figure out along the way? He figured out why most property training doesn't actually work. So there's 3 reasons. Inexperience is one of them. So I've seen this myself. I've seen someone, I've officiated an event, I've seen someone there as a student, the next year they're on Facebook and they're actually teaching this, or they're even at the events and teaching this. So it's not led by the main person with the experience. Number two, incompletion. So they will miss out little bits that are vital. Like, for example, I officiated a rent-to-rent course, and they happened to miss out that it won't work with a mortgage. It wasn't until I met Kevin that I realized this. And these are vital things that they need. The third one is oversubscription. Now, there's so many people in the room. People aren't getting their questions answered. You know, there's too many students. It's too many students to have backup and support afterwards. The door's never shut. It's all about the money. It's all about building the empire for them, and not supporting the tribe. So I got to experience this myself, working with these other trainers. I even asked them, you know, you've what's the word? You've added so many people to your courses. How are you going to support them afterwards? And they would always say to me, don't worry about that. Just get the money in. Don't worry about that. We'll deal with that later. And then it's not dealt with later, unfortunately. Now, I've even officiated a lot of events, helped them build their business through their events, and not got paid from a lot of them. So this is the reason I only work with Kevin now, because I know that his values and his morals, his ethics, they align with mine. And I like how he treats his mentees and his proteges. A lot of these trainers, in fact, all of them, I think, I don't know anyone who doesn't, expect their mentees to pay everything all in one go and then take all the risk. Now, Kevin doesn't do this. Kevin believes in sharing the risk. So I'll go through that a little bit more later on as well. So what else did he figure out along the way? He figured out how to make property training work. Now, if you're like me, you love reviews. So if you're interested, go to the Ninja Investor Program Facebook page. And there's a lot of reviews in there. There's another one there. Another one there. I'll just skip through these. So a few more of Kevin's proteges. So Ed has made £200,000 from just 3 flips, and he earns £2,000 a month from a serviced accommodation and £2,000 a month from an HMO. So just under £5,000 he makes a month. Kareem, he's on just under £2,000 per month. And the next deal that he's planning to do is estimated to make over £100,000 profit. Not too bad. Not too shabby. Paul's already scaled to £4,000 a month, so he is a higher rate taxpayer. He's said another £1,000 and he can sack his boss, and I love that. So again, they stopped worrying about the price of getting started, and they realised the true cost of staying where they were. So this is what happens when they understand finance. This is what happens when they know about finance. These are the kind of return on investments that they're getting every single month. So you'd think that the enrollment fees to join the Ninja Investor Digital might be in excess of £20,000, which, to be fair, even if it was double or triple that, it would be way worth the value when you see the results that they are getting. £20,000, you wouldn't do a deal with less than £20,000. That's an absolute minimum profit. Otherwise, it's not a deal. But anyway, that's not the case. So what did Harpreet, Steve, Matt and Charlotte and many others invest? So for the Ninja Investor Digital Film Studio Quality Training, the unlimited amount of 3-trigger Zoom meetings, implementation days every single quarter, and the digital Facebook group, they invested 3,892. And like I said, Kevin does believe in sharing the risk. So I'll talk a bit more about that later. So there we go. I mean, even if it was the full 3,892, from the money that they're making through implementing the training, it represents a fraction of their monthly earnings from their portfolio. A lot of people come to us stuck. You know, they say, oh, one day I will. And then when they find what they're looking for, they become day one. Not one day, day one. Let's go. Love it. Like Kevin says, you can't backdate planting a tree. So why is this? Kevin figured out how to make property training work. So how? less is more. So Kevin is closed most of the year. He doesn't take on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. He has limited spaces every month. And that's because his biggest fear is over-promising and under-delivering. So if you've done any work with Kevin at all, you'll know that he always over delivers. So I've masses more to teach you over the rest of today, but just quickly, I'll go through why other property training doesn't work. We've been through that, and why this property training does work. So we've gone through these. Now, in experience, Kevin has decades of experience, over 20 years, not just investing, but brokering the deals. So he knows everything about the finance. He's brokered hundreds of thousands of deals, from single buy-to-lets, multi-million pound development loans, everything in between. In completion, this is one training and everything is in there, and it is there for life. It's the whole package. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly. He will tell you everything, no bullshit. Oversubscription, like I said, there are limited spaces, and this is just because Kevin doesn't want to overload the implementation days. He wants everyone to, he always says, I work to a standard, not to a time. And I love that. So he will stay until everyone's questions are answered. And he wouldn't be able to do that if he had too many people in there. So he works two fundamental principles. Number one, to de-risk his mentees' investments. And number two, keep his mentees safe. Very, very important to him. So he works on community-based training. Remember, I was talking about the tribe. A lot of trainers use transactional property training, which is you pay, you train, you leave. Kevin likes to use learn, share, and stay. So he's trained people over 10 years ago, and they're still in the community. They still attend events, networking days. It's like a family. It's absolutely brilliant. I've never seen anything like it. So yeah, there is an alternative to transactional property training. So, right, enough about Kevin's mentees. Now the next section is going to be all about you. So we're going to go to a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and see how you find dilapidated, unwanted properties, add exponential value, and then sell or refinance. So we'll go for a quick 5-minute break. What's the time now? 8 minutes past 11. Let's say 13 minutes past 11. Got a lot to get through. So quick toilet break, quick grab a tea or coffee, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, guys, I hope you're all back. Right, so now, how do you find dilapidated, unwanted properties, add exponential value, and then sell them and bank a cash profit, which is never a bad outcome, or refinance to pull most or all of your cash back out? Now, there are a lot of deals that you can pull all your cash back out. However, it won't be every deal. Not going to bullshit and say, oh yeah, absolutely every single deal we get all the cash back out. No, it won't be every deal. Now, you might have heard this quote by Henry Ford: if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Now, Kevin's added a little bit to that: until you change the way you think. Brilliant. So we're going to go through to Kevin again, and he's going to go into a little bit more detail on how to buy right, how to refurb right, and how to refinance right.
So buy, refurb, refinance. To make it work, you have to be good at each of the three things. If you pay too much for the property, you almost certainly can't pull that back out. You've set the die is cast if you overpay. Problem is, most people don't realise they overpaid, but they get here way too late. Refurbing it right, you need to, as much as you can, refurb. When I say refurb, let's expand that out. It's a way to describe tangible improvements. So extending a lease, I've had a couple of conversations in the break about short leases, because I talked about them in a couple of the video adverts that I've seen. That's a tangible improvement. Extend the lease, because some short lease flats are in really good condition. They're not all wrecks. Some of them are, but they're not all wrecks. But tangible improvement. So we're bracketing it under refurb, but it's more than refurb. It's anything you can do to a property that's a tangible improvement that adds value. Get that, price that up right, that should work, and get mortgage lenders' valuers to agree with the value you've created. And too many people, even if they've bought it right, refurbed it on time and on budget, because they don't know how to interact with mortgage lenders' valuers, they get refinance down valuation. So we're going to look at all of that in this session. We're going to try and get this done before lunch. Okay. Now, we see below market value. As this is like some sort of, it's positioned by some trainers as the holy grail, and it's completely false, guys. You do not have to buy a property cheap to make it work. Most of the time you do, but it's not the defining factor. You know, if it's priced right, you can buy it at the asking price and still make it work. Because what is critical important is not below market value, but it's add value. Now, remember we were talking about the 3-trigger deal finder. I said one of the things you've got to do is to look at, can you add value? Just ask that question, can I add value or not? Can I see something that's a problem on this property that I can solve that problem, and by doing so add value? If you can do that, then it warrants further detailed looking about costing it out and that type of thing. But the fundamental thing is, you've got to add value. If you can add value and get it cheaper, happy days. But what's almost certainly going to happen is you're going to have to be more disciplined about the way you search and define properties than you've been in the past. It has to be the right property for the use you want to put it to. It has to be in the right location, has to be the right seller, you have to pay the right price for it, and you have to finance it the right way. All of which we're going to cover in this session. Here's a very important point. You fail to buy 100% of the properties you never offer on. You can't buy a property unless you offer. What we learn is, if it's good enough to go out and view it, you should offer every time. What if you put in a price that's so low that the agent or the vendor feels insulted? Okay? If that's the outcome, it's entirely your fault. Not because of the price you offered, because of the way you packaged and justified it. Guys, we are putting offers in sometimes £100,000 below the asking price or more. And let's be very clear on this. I take a very strong stance on this. I hate these phrases, low ball offers, cheeky offers. No one that trains with me does anything like that at all. What we make is fair offers based on the problem, the cost of solving it, the optimum value that creates, and a profit and a margin for ourselves. Really want to be clear on that. This is not about exploiting people and picking up stuff on the cheap. We always make a fair price. That makes sense, guys? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Here's the usual response that we get with an agent from people that I've trained to the point where they can be competent to make low offers, sometimes less than 100, over £100,000 less than the asking price. The agent says, we don't think the seller's going to accept it, but we see where you're coming from. If it's offensive or if you're laughed at, it's because you haven't yet become adept enough at delivering a low offer. Who defines what the offer is? We're going to cover this later, but who defines what's fair? Because it's not the asking. The asking price isn't a fair price. The asking price is just what someone hopes they can sell it at. Am I wasting my time putting in low offers? It's a limiting belief, and I'm being objective rather than judgmental. Let me talk about Marianne again. The offer she got accepted, asking price was at 450,000. She put in her first offer at 310. She got it accepted at 330. Okay? Why? Because it had a problem no one else wanted to take on. Okay? So it's having the confidence to say, my price is right. Your asking price is off the scale, unrealistic. That's your problem, not mine. Here's why. Again, it's credibility comes from a reasoned explanation. Here's why it's off the scale, unrealistic. What I'm giving you today is headlines and pointers in the right direction. I can't give you all the answers in one day. Yeah, it's way too complex, simple, but just elongated to give you all the answers in one day. But I can point you to where this is all going. So now let's look at these 7 steps and drill down in a bit more detail. Find a problem on an unmortgageable property. Let's have a look at this. Now, estate agents sometimes help us with this because they flag it up in cash buyers only, and they usually do it like this. I'm going to do it this way, although they'll probably do it in one line of text. Uppercase, triple asterisk, either end of that, just so you get the picture. Here's what happens. Why are agents doing this? Because they're fed up wasting their time showing unmortgageable properties to people that need mortgages. So they just put this barrier up to say, if you haven't got the cash, don't waste our time. We're not going to give it you. Now, what we're going to learn predominantly this afternoon is bridging finance allows us to play in that level of the market. Because bridging lenders lend on unmortgageable properties, all they want to know is how you're going to fix it. If your reasoning is plausible, they'll say, okay, here's the money. Go fix it. People have a natural aversion to taking on a problem. But here's the thing, and I've got a poster somewhere around that says, yes, opportunities mostly come wearing the cloak of a problem. So within a problem lies the seed of opportunity. When we're prepared to look at problems and we know how to solve them, which is the critical point, then we get a advantage over other people because their minds are closed, and they may have been on some training that said don't look at mortgageable properties. And I know a lot of trainers tell you that, do not look at unmortgageable properties, and I thank them for that because it leaves the way clear for us. We don't tend to find we have much competition to buy these types of properties. So it all starts with an unmortgageable property, and it may be that the agent didn't realise it was unmortgageable until one or more buyers pay for a survey and it come back, we're not lending on that. Mortgage lenders are great. They're our best ally because they're such picky bastards that there's so many things that they say not lend on that. We'll lend on it once you fix it, not lend on that. So it's a huge opportunity to find the deals that no one else wants to buy. And it all starts from there, step 1. Step 2 is you need to understand how you're going to make money. And it's right that you should make money. You're fixing a problem that no one else wants to fix, and then you're going to make that nice for either one of your tenants to live in or the person that buys it from you to live in. So we're taking a problem property that no one wants to live in and no one wants to own. We're fixing the problem and we're making it a desirable property. So we're actually a force for good, which sits nicely. Now, making that offer, and John's been saying about that, we are going to be making offers. It's not that we deliberately set out to make low offers. It's that sellers overprice their property. They are not realistic about the value of it. There's a lot of hope value going on there. I hope someone buys it at this price, because this would solve a lot of my problems if they did. In some cases, it's off the scale unrealistic. In some cases, they're asking the done up value with the problem solved, but you've still got to solve the problem, which is crazy. We don't make low offers. We make fair offers that are low by comparison to an unrealistic asking price. Does that make sense, guys? Yes or no? Yeah. In the end, the market sets the price. A property's worth, you've heard this before, I'm sure, a property's only worth what someone will pay for it. And if a seller wants to ask 100,000 more than it's worth, that's not our issue. But we will tell them what the fair price is that property. And here's what happens, guys. Within a matter of months, usually, someone buys that property at around the price that was originally offered. Because the seller comes round to the point where 2 or 3 or 4 people have come in with similar offers, and maybe the people that have offered in excess of that have realised their mistake and pulled out before they exchange contracts, which happens a lot. Then the seller becomes acclimatised to the true value of their property. Yeah. Look, this is unnatural. It's unnatural to seek, embrace, and rejoice in rejection. We spend our whole lives avoiding rejection, don't we? Really? You know, do we apply for every job that's going? No. We're gonna say, I'm never gonna get that job, so I don't want to feel the rejection. I'm just not going to apply. Yeah. So it's in our psyche to try and avoid rejection. We need to, again, observe the masses do the opposite. We need to embrace it, bring it on. Give me as much rejection as I can handle, because it's not about me. It's not a personal evaluation of me as a person. It's just a number. You're not rejecting me, my values. You're just rejecting the number that I'm given. So, as I said, pretty much everyone does that. But here's where most people walk away. This is one of the biggest mistakes of all. Because think about it. People have found a property. They've done their due diligence on it. They've worked out how much they can offer. They've made their offer. It's got rejected. And the mistake they make, and pay particular attention to this, the mistake they make is to believe the seller is saying, no, not ever. In other words, I'm never going to sell my property to you at that price. It's not what they're saying. What they're saying is, I'm not yet ready to let it go at that price. I believe there's there's a buyer out there, knight in shining armor type thing. They're going to come along and save me by giving me the price I want. So I'm going to wait until they show up. This is human psychology, guys. This is what's going on in sellers' heads. Now, we can control every bit of the process apart from how quickly a seller gets motivated. They only get motivated in their own time frame. And let's be clear on what's going on. They've got a dilemma in their head. They've got a property they don't want to own. They've got a price they want to get for it, and they need to square that circle, and sometimes it's a bitter pill to swallow, but they still need to sell the property. So we've got a guy called Nilesh, is it? Yeah, here he is, Nilesh, down here. There we are, with the blue shirt. Remember my 100 Club. Remember I saw him makes 21 grand a month out of property, and he's not even full-time, guys. He's an IT consultant. He does data or some weird stuff. But guess what? He picks the most valuable contracts now, and he'll sit at home on his arse, not literally, until the right IT contract comes in. He said it's got 2 criteria in there. It's got to be interesting or lucrative. Because if it isn't either or both, I don't get out of bed. Well, he does, but not to work. He phoned me up January 23. He said, Kevin, I've just had another deal agreed. You're going to love this one. I said, go on then. What is it? He said, well, I've been tracking it for a while. In fact, he said, my first offer with this woman for her mixed-use commercial property, she rejected me 3 years ago. 3 years ago, yeah? So I said, that's amazing. Well done for following up. He said, but you told me to. You said follow up until she sells it. Well, she never did. So I give her a call every month, every couple of months, checking on what her level of motivation was. In the end, she couldn't wait any longer for this mythical buyer to show up. Nilesh was there. He wanted to buy the property. So in her head, she rationalised that, okay, that's the fair price for the property. Does this make sense, guys? Yes or no? Yeah. And all we're doing is we're letting people convince themselves that ours is the right price, because it is the right price. It's the right price for someone that's prepared to take on a problem, solve it, and make a decent amount of money for solving the problem. There's no exploitation going on here. Okay, so following up monthly. Step 6. So when they say, okay, I accept your offer, then we need to raise the finance, and that's where we get the bridging finance involved. And once you've solved the problem, added exponential value, you then get the mortgage, whichever type it is. That's going to be based on your tenant type, and you pull all your cash out and you go again. There we are. Good. So now step 4 to 5, it wouldn't always take 3 years, but let's get some reality here. It'll be incredibly exceptional if you made an offer and someone accepted it within a month. People tend to take longer to get motivated. You could get lucky. You could get them right at the end of their motivation cycle. They've been rejecting offers for month after month after month. Your timing is just not judgmental. It's lucky. You just hit it right when they're saying, we just need to get rid of it. But most of the time, your offers are going to take between 6 to 12 months to be accepted. So I'm just laying that down for some realism, guy, because I'm not promising you're going to change your life in the next month. This is just fundamental human psychology, guys. Sellers get exponentially more motivated the longer they cannot sell their property. Have you ever tried to sell anything? You must have done. Yeah, whether it's a house, car, furniture, whatever, bike, and you've made a decision, I don't want it. And the longer it hangs around, the more irritated you get by its presence. Is that right, guys? Yes or no? People that sell a property are no different. They have the same frustrations, the same pressures to get a result. And that pressure builds the longer they can't get the result they want. This is just how human brains work. All we're doing is locking ourselves in and letting the natural process take its time, keeping regular contact to monitor that process until they're ready to say yes. And what happens if you don't monitor that progress and process and see how it goes on? Someone else will just walk in there a few months later to make the same calculation you made, make the more or less the same offer you made, and the seller's now got themselves in, oh, okay, yeah, it's probably about fair. I'll take it. You did the work, someone else reaped the benefit. Why? You didn't follow up. One of the massively powerful lessons to learn to be successful in property. Follow up is the king. Okay, so let's look at buying now. We're going to look at buying, refurbing and refinancing. Let's look at buying. Okay, what condition of property should you be buying? The worse it is, the better you are. Worse it is, the better. Look, here's the truth, and I'm retelling you this. We're just talking about what I'm saying already, but I'm just giving it to you in a different format so that it lands with you at a deeper level. Repetition in different formats lands at a deeper level, so you get it. I want you to get this. The worse its condition, the less interest is buying it. And the less interest there is in buying it, the cheaper it can be bought. And the cheaper it can be bought, the bigger profit you can make. Just common sense, guys. So here's a protege. We talked about Ed. Yeah. When I met Ed, he said, do you know what? He said, I think agents just give me the bum's rush. I think they just give me some lip service and then they say, Meister. Just like the rest of them come off property courses. And he specifically went on training that said, you must avoid unmortgaged properties. Couldn't get any traction. It changed to such a degree that he's made well over £100,000 and he's in my Ninja Club. So flipped 3 properties, made nearly £250,000. Got a serviced accommodation property, makes over £2,000 a month from that. HMO makes over £2,000 a month from that. 2 properties, none of his own cash left in it. There you go. Okay, what type of property should you buy? The one that matches the tenant you want to attract. Let me give you a tip, guys. Don't buy holiday lets where people don't take holidays. Yeah. Now, there was light-hearted, but there's a serious thing there. Decide the tenant you want first. I'll give you some guidance on that this morning. Decide who you want to pay your rent. If you want holiday lets, holiday let tenants to pay you rent, they want to stay a week or 2 in your property. Great. Then go and find the properties and the areas where that works. Yeah, or whatever you want to do, HMOs, whatever. Now, here's a really thing. There is a demand out there already. Whichever area, there is a demand in that area. If you're smart, you tap into it. The dumb thing to do is to try and create the demand. That's not clever. Find out what demand already exists and feed it. How do you know? Agents will tell you. Letting agents will tell you what properties they can't get enough of. Ask them first, then go and find properties to give to them so they can rent them out. And they'll probably rent out your property 5 times over. You know? If you're flipping, you just want to buy and sell, you don't want to rent it out, talk to estate agents and say, what properties have you got the most demand for right now? Then go find them. You know, it sounds simple, but people make this a lot more complicated by ignoring basics like that, which is why I bring these little sayings up so that they help you. Feed the demand, don't create it. You go, okay, where would you find a property? Well, I think there's 4 main ways to find properties. Direct to vendor, through estate agents, through auctions, or from sources. Now, it doesn't really matter which combination of those you work with, as long as it includes agents, because agents sell 90% of the properties in the UK. It's spectacularly dumb to say, well, I'm not going to include properties that are on the market with estate agents. Why? Because they've done all the work, they've done all the marketing, they've got the presence. People in a given area know some of the better agents. They've got a reputation. Why wouldn't you tap into that? It's crazy not to. I've seen it justified by the trainers, and they've said, you don't want to be dealing with estate agents because competition, too much competition. Now, I get the point. If you're following the herd, if you're going after the properties that everyone else wants, that are mortgageable, just need a bit of tidying up, yes, there will, I already said this, there will be too much competition. You will not buy it cheap enough to make your money and turn it around. But when you're buying the properties that other people don't want, we've been talking about consistently, and I'm going to keep talking about it because I want to make sure that you leave here with no doubt whatsoever of where you need to be focusing. If you're going to really make your mark in property, when we buy properties that other people don't want to buy, then estate agents are a great source. Every agent during the course of a year gets problem properties. We just need to relieve them of their inability to earn money on them and become irresistible in the process. And guess what? When you buy a problem property from an agent, they'll find you more. In fact, sometimes they'll go looking for more. I've got Clive over here. He's in my Ninja 100 Club. He's made an absolute shed load of money implementing what I've taught him. Here he is, Clive there in the middle there. He's one of my short lease kings. He specifically buys properties with short leases. And guess what? Agents can't find almost anyone that buys short lease flats. So they go finding them for him. Hey, Clive, got another short lease flat for you. Interested? Yeah, what you got? Unpaid sources. Hey, because they're not going to charge you a sourcing fee. The seller pays them. So they'll do this for free. Amazing. So estate agents, direct to vendor. Direct to vendor is just like putting carpet bombing an area or a street with brightly coloured envelopes and thinking you're original, except everyone else that did the same course does exactly the same. So there's no originality in it at all. But God, it's hard work because you're hitting 99 point whatever % of people that have got no interest at all in selling their property. You're getting a 1 or 2% return rate. Now, it can work as an additional bolt-on strategy, but it never should be your main strategy. If you're in with a portal like Property Filter, they've got a more sophisticated way to target direct to vendor, but that's not a scattergun approach. That's very, very focused. Anyone subscribe to Property Filter? Raise your hand if you do. Great, okay. You've got auctions. Be very careful of auctions because you'll be unlikely to buy properties at the right price at auction. One of the biggest myths around is you get bargain properties at auctions. Might have been done 20 years ago, but it's not true now, with a few exceptions, because you get too many people that watched a few shows of Homes Under the Hammer that thought, how hard can that be? And these people are crazy guys. They pay the done up value for a property that's still done. I know one of my students was looking at a property in Walsall. They were attracted by the low guide price. Yeah. Why do you think they have a low guide price? The hook you in, guys. It was a property that was worth 130,000 done up. Guide price was 29,000. Guess what? Got loads of bidders. And using the maximum offer matrix I'm going to show you in a bit, and building in a modest 20,000 profit for themselves, we worked out they could not bid more than £64,000. I said, promise me you won't bid more than £60,000. Sit on your hands if it goes more than £60,000. They said, Kevin, we will. They phoned me up that afternoon. They said, frigging idiots. And I said, what? He said, it needs 40 grand minimum spent on it. And there's stamp duty to pay. And we looked in the legal pack, and there's £8,000 worth of buyer's fees that the seller's hidden in there that they've got to pay on top of the price that they agreed to pay. They can't have read the legal pack. So I said, okay. He said, it's just incredible. I said, but what they pay for it? He said, I honestly, I don't believe it. Yeah, but what they pay for it? He said, but it's only worth 130,000 done up. I said, what they pay for it? He said, 132,000. So I think the seller must have booked themselves a world cruise. On the back of that, we did the numbers on it, and we worked out to make it worth 130, they'd have to spend 180. Yeah. Now, you can't compete with idiots like that. So you can't. So you will waste an awful lot of time bidding and not succeeding at auction. There are smart ways to do it. So at the next level after today, I do have a module based on how to successfully deal at auction. But it ain't turning up on the day and trying to bid with everyone else. That's a mug's game. So auctions, difficult to make them work, but possible. Sourcers, be very, very careful about buying properties from a sourcer. Here's the general rule with a sourcer. Whatever you know about property, they know less. Why do you think they're a sourcer? Because they haven't got any money. And they went on a training course that said you can earn 10 grand a month by finding properties on Rightmove and selling them to other people. What a crock of shit that is. Well, an estate agent has a legitimate premises or legitimate business. Sourcers are just usually someone who's been on a course. If they're business minded at all, they will have got themselves fully licensed and compliant is the word I was looking for. My good friend Tina Walsh says 95% of them have done no such thing. They're just winging it. If you've got, let me ask you this. If you've got sophisticated AI-driven subscription things like Property Filter, that is, depending, I think they've got different levels now, but is roughly about £100 a month, that can automate your sourcing, even if you're short of time, why would you time after time after time, property after property after property, pay some amateur, most of the time, the majority of the time, thousands of pounds to give you a deal that probably don't stack anyway? I'll apologise, not apologise to any sourcer. You know, sourcers, you are the most unnecessary part in the property buying process. No one needs you. Now, I'll take a bit of a hard line on this, because no one that I train pays money to sourcers. Almost no one. There might be an exceptional deal that someone's got a clear market advantage in that type of thing. Maybe it's a particular type of commercial deal or something, but generally sourcers are the most irrelevant part of the property buying process. And I want to save you guys spending endless thousands to them on finding deals. You absolutely do not need them. You know, I spoke to someone last year, and now I never mention names, but I just talk about things. You know, they paid £30,000 for a 12-month mentorship on sourcing property, not even buying the bloody things. And I spoke to them in the 12th and final month. I said, "How's it gone?" They said, "We sold the property." Scary stuff, guys. So this is in your workbook. I'm going to skip quickly over it. How do you trust a sourcer? They should answer every one of those questions. 95% of them. Tina says, and she should know, she wrote the book on it, says that they'll fall over before they get to question 7. Now, the buy part of VRR, they need to be motivated. Now, they can be motivated for a number of different reasons. Let's drill down on what this actually means. Because, look, at any given time, there's probably about 1 million properties for sale in the UK across Rightmove. Yeah, similar amount on Zoopla. Now, everyone wants to sell their property, otherwise why would they list it for sale? So they all want to sell their property, but probably 90% of them we aren't able to do business with because they've got no urgency to sell it. So when a property comes on the market, the attachment to the price is probably up here. The attachment to the speed of the sale is probably down here. Most people, it stays like that and it doesn't really change over a period of time. Now, but the longer people can't sell their property, it does become, the speed becomes more important and the price becomes less important. Now, when it switches, and actually now it's more important that they sell the property quickly and the price they get for it becomes a secondary concern, those are the people we can dividend with, because they're ready to sell it at a price that works for us, and they'll take the best price they can get. And we said that's the bit we can't control. Some people get there in weeks, some people get there in months, and someone like his woman got there in about 3 years. Okay, so we need to understand that people need to have a reason why they need a quick sale. And I've given you a few of the reasons there. Divorcing, emigrating, moving somewhere else for jobs is a key motivator. Moving somewhere else for families is a key motivator. Any of the variations, moving closer to children, moving closer to parents moving closer to children, and aged parents moving closer to children, all different reasons why someone says, I need to sell it. I need to sell it in the next few weeks rather than let it drag on like it's done. Okay. Now, until they get to that point, it's almost impossible to buy at the price that makes you a decent profit from people that are not motivated. Okay. How do you finance the purchase? Now, I'm talking about specifically, how do you finance an unmortgageable property purchase? Cash is great. If you've got cash, brilliant. Using your own cash is great because you've got zero borrowing costs. If you haven't got your own cash, someone else might lend it to you. And you need to be, as we said earlier, you need to be cautious about how they're going to give it to you and whether they're genuine or whether they're going to change their mind. But you cannot buy an unmortgageable property with a mortgage, clearly, because they're not going to lend to you. Okay, so where would you go for that? Here's WP Property Finance. That's our offices in Colchester, in Essex. And you've got Trinity. Now, Trinity does all the bridging and development finance. And Isaac does the investment mortgages. So for step 6, we use Trinity. And for step 7 of the 7 simple steps, we use Isaac. And the thing that makes this brokerage, and I get a lot of compliments and a lot of good feedback that say these guys are excellent. The reason they're excellent is they do what most brokers don't do. Isaac doesn't do bridging finance. He could, but he doesn't. He doesn't do main residence mortgages. We've got David that does that. He just does investment mortgages all week long. And Trinity could do that, but she just sticks with bridging and development. So they've specialised to the point where they know it inside out in a way that most general brokers don't. How to never overpay. I said I'd give you the formula. I know you were really keen on that. So I'll give you that formula. Okay. I'm going to do the headlines. There's more detail that I do at the level after today, but I'm going to give you the headlines. So, and when we look through this, we'll realise why our offer that we spoke about earlier is fair. It's not lowball. It's not cheeky. It's a fair offer. Okay. Now, you have to do this in reverse. So it's a bit of reverse engineering. You cannot get a price, any price you want for a property. Remember what we said? A property will sell for what someone's prepared to pay for it. Now, if you're buying a property in a street where the most expensive property ever sold is 150,000, no matter what you do to the property, gold taps, all this type of thing, no one's going to pay you 300,000 to live in 150 grand street, are they? If that's their affordability, they'll just find a nicer house in a better street. So there's always going to be downward pressure on the price you can make a property worth, regardless of what you do with it. So you start with, what's the optimum value? You call it optimum value, ceiling value, done up value, gross development value. They're all ways to describe the same thing. And it's the most you could reasonably expect to sell that property for or get it revalued. You've got all sorts of ways to help you determine that. You've got land registry that will give you actual facts on what property is sold for in that street. You've got other places like Rightmove, sold prices, and other net house prices, which all take that same information from Land Registry all comes from there, and then they reposition it so you don't have to pay the £7 fee. You can also ask agents, if I give this back to you nicely done up, what would you be able to get from it? So agents could give you an additional feedback. So you should be able to get, in most cases, and I think we talked about this over lunch, what if none of that works because you're buying something that's a little bit unusual? It's not about the condition, it's about what have other properties like that sold for you. If you haven't got readily available comparables, that's where you hook up with a RICS valuer and pay them for their professional opinion on how much it's worth. RICS valuer, RICS valuer, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. Okay. Now, so there are 3 parts to this process. So it starts with the optimum value. Now, we're buying properties that are not in the optimum value because they've got a problem, be it dilapidation or some other issue that we need to solve and make money by solving it. There is, let's call it, we'll broadly call it the works costs. So who determines what the optimum value is? The market, yeah? Or if it's a mortgage lender, if it's a mortgage, you're getting mortgage lender's valuer. So really, what is our ability to control that end value? Not much, is it? We haven't really got, okay, we can fit better quality materials, possibly, nicer kitchen, nicer bathroom, blah, blah, blah. But we don't have much control over the end value. We're governed by the market and mortgage lender's values. Yeah. Okay. What level of influence do we have over the cost of the works? Who decides the cost of the works? So who decides what price materials are? Builders merchants. Whatever it is you want, plasterboard, any material for a job, they're going to decide what that is. And what about fitting it? Well, they're tradesmen. I mean, you might have a contractor that oversees all of it, but he's going to have to pay tradesmen. And tradesmen have a rate, whether it's a day rate or the rate for the job. So tradesmen decide, or their head contractor decide the cost of the labour. Builders merchants decide the cost of materials. Do we get much say over that? No. So that's pretty much, because there's a cost to buy it. Okay, that's going to be stamp duty and other stuff. There's the cost of uplifting it up to that optimum value. And of course, we've got to get rid of it or get it refinanced. Agents don't sell properties for free. So we've got agents' fees or mortgage arrangement fees to pay back property and get our cash back out. So that's an exit cost, and we've got a profit. If you're looking at these three parts of a refinance or an evaluation process, there's the optimum value once we've fixed the problem. There's the cost of fixing the problem. We don't have much control over that. The third part is how much we pay for it. Now, can we control that? Yes, because no one makes us pay more than we want to pay for a property. They might not sell it at the price that we want to buy it at, but no one makes us pay the price. Does that make sense, guys? Yes or no? Yeah. So this is the only bit that we really control, the price we pay. We've got the optimum value, the done-up value, less what it costs to buy it, less what it costs to get it up to that optimum value, less what it costs to refinance or sell, and a decent profit margin. A decent profit margin for a project is 20% of the optimum value, 20% of the done-up value. That's what you should be building in. At a push, you can drop down to about 15% because you're fooling yourself if you do it for less, because it's a decent amount of a reward for the risk you're taking. If it's a 200,000 property, you should be making 40 grand or 30 grand at 15%. Why would you want to make less? Why would you want to buy a problem property, weeks, possibly months of work into it, put a lot of money into it, and only make 20 grand? Why would you want to do that? Here's what happens with a skinny profit like 10%. Even if you put some contingency in there, some problems you didn't anticipate have come up, which have ate away at your profit. And if it was too skinny to start with, it's now. So people get really, particularly when they're starting out on their first 1 or 2 projects, super enthusiastic to start. I'm doing it. I'm a property investor. I've considered myself. I'm real. Except as the project unravels and your profit gets smaller and smaller and smaller, you're no longer excited, at least to the extent you were. And what Bridges have seen happen is people just walk out and they said, I can't be doing this anymore. You have the bridging, then you have it, you finish it. So they send an asset manager in there to effectively project manage to get it through and sold to get their capital back. So they see that when the profits are too skinny at the start, usually it ends badly. So prevention is better than cure. They pretty much know that if you're not making 15% of the done up value, gross development value, you're going to have a bad project on your hands. Good buddy of mine is Paul Tinker. And he said, you know what? He said, I've stopped working with investors. I mean, they bought this property and they said, right, can you price up the work? He said, yes, 50 grand. It can't be, I've only allowed 30. And he said, well, you're done then, aren't you? Because it's 50 grand. Can you make it 30? No. If you remember what I said, my good buddy Paul Martin Rapley is a quantity surveyor. Quantity surveyor's job is to price up works. He's priced up and delivered and project managed over 500 projects over a 40-year career. Now, he knows how to price up, whether it's a multi-million-pound commercial development or it's a two-bed semi-refurb. Now, he's got a course. I gave you what's it called? Ultimate Deal Stack, I think it's called. Yeah, something like that. You know. So he sells it for 500 plus VAT. For people that are with me after the day and training with me after the day, it's baked into my training. And because I want everyone that I'm mentoring, and I've got my eyes on their deal, and that I'm holding their hand metaphorically and looking over their shoulder and checking their deals. I want to know they're pricing it right. So I'm giving you the course. It's about another 7 hours worth of training. I'm giving you that training so that you can price up correctly. Yeah, because if you come from a trade background, and I do get quite a few tradesmen that come through it, they know how to do it because they're doing it anyway. Yeah, but for everyone else, it's one of the biggest things that holds people back. I recognised that, and I said, Martin, can we do a deal? Can I buy that training course and put it in as part of my package? And he said, of course we can, we're mates. So we've known each other for well over a decade. Here's a really important point, and this is where people go wrong. If you've worked that maximum price out and then you pay £20,000 more, you agree to buy it at £20,000 more than the price you worked out, what changes? All off that profit. You just make 20 grand less. These prices, none of this stuff changes. Yeah. So it's absolutely critical that you know the price up front. You make that offer regardless of the asking price. And that's the point, actually. Where's the asking price in this? It's not there, is it? No, because it's irrelevant. The asking price has nothing to do with what you can afford to pay for a property. So if there's anyone training out there that said you've got to offer 10% below the asking price or 20% below the asking price, it's fundamentally flawed thinking. The asking price has nothing to do. Probably about a year ago, this realization dawned on me. The asking price is often a figment of someone's imagination, the seller or the agent. They just thought up a price. But the purchase price that you buy at should always be the product of your calculation. This works, it doesn't matter whether you're commercial, residential, holiday let, HMO, whatever you want to do to a property, whether you want to sell it or whether you want to refinance it, this formula works. That makes sense, guys? Yes or no? Okay. Good. Right, let's look at refurbs. There it is. Just talking about it. The ultimate deal stacking course. Yeah? He will sell it to you for £500 plus VAT. Well, 497. You need a guy that has spent his working life as a quantity surveyor pricing up. You know, if you've got if the NHS are building a new hospital, how do they know what it's going to cost? They get a quantity surveyor to look at the architect's plans and say, that's going to cost 15 million. This is this guy's specialist skill. You can work with him independently, and you can buy his pre-recorded Ultimate Deal Stacker course. He tells it to you there. Look, never overpay for a deal again. What's the point here? Is because that training course shows you how to price it up room by room, everything to look for, and how to price it up. Now he's also got for free, I understand, if you Google him, he's got a much more headlines version, is his refurbishment handbook. And another buddy of mine, Mike Woods, he comes from an architectural background. He's built a £10 million plus portfolio in South Wales, which takes some doing. given the prices down there. Now, my expertise is finance. These guys' expertise is in refurbs and refurb costs. So plug it in. So you can get both of those. Let's pay a few quid for his book on Amazon. I believe that's a free download. There we go. Okay, so refinance. Look at that. Now, I still see mortgage brokers that say you have to hold a property for 6 months before you can refinance it on a mortgage. Absolute rubbish. It's never been like that, and it isn't like it now. But when I was brokering and Isaac's brokering now, we've always been able to get refinance mortgages within 6 months. So if you're talking to a mortgage broker that tells you you've got to wait 6 months, here's my suggestion: sack them, because they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, and get someone decent that understands it, like Isaac. So if you refinance within 6 months, there are always lenders. Some lenders will say, well, what did you pay for it? Okay, we'll lend on that. Not much good to you because you're not going to recycle your cash. What did you pay for it and how much did you spend on it? Better, but you still don't want that. This is what you want. A mortgage lender that within 6 months of buying it is prepared to lend on the open market value. Isaac knows exactly who in the market is doing it right now. If you do wait 6 months, you will have a wider choice of lenders. That should lead to better rates, but because they're more likely to price it on the open market value. But open market value lending is what you want. And there we are. There's your contacts again. There's Isaac, and then there's Trinity. Okay, so here's a protege who implemented it. So here's Kerim. So he believed his cash pot was too small, and look at the deals they were afforded. Mortgage buyer mindset. Pretty much everyone I come into contact with comes to me with a mortgage buyer mindset because they believe they need a mortgage to buy a property. So he bought this house, unsold auction lot there again. This is where you can make money in property, in auctions, to buy the ones that didn't sell at auction. Because if you're a seller and you probably didn't, an auction probably wasn't your first choice. You didn't think, oh, I need to sell a property. Oh no, never mind agents, I'll just sell it at auction. Don't think that's many people's line of thought here. Normally auction is where, shit, the agent can't sell it. Where am I going to go? I don't know, I can sell it at auction. And if it didn't sell there, where are they going to go now? Nowhere else really left, is it, after that? So you would expect sellers with properties that have sold, that remained unsold once or twice. Remember, like I said, Paul, he was waiting yesterday for a callback on a property that had failed to hit the price twice in auction. You would think that seller's more motivated. So this one, he bought it for 64,000. Borrowed. I'm going to show you in the session later today how he borrowed the refurb cost of 30,000. Got it revalued up at 140. Isaac found him a buy-to-let mortgage at 105, and there's a no money left in deal. He's now done that 6 times using BRR. He's now got, he now earns 20 grand a year, 1750 a month. He said, you know, I can't give up my job yet, but I'm on the way. And I saw it yesterday at the 100 Club, Fincher 100 Club people, and it's progressing. Almost everyone that was in the meeting yesterday is at the point of doing the biggest deal they've ever done, because no one stays at the same level. Everyone cuts their teeth at a certain level and then they progress. So this is exactly what Kerim's doing. So he's now scaling out. He's bought a short lease flat in London. He's in the process of extending the lease, refurbing it and flipping it, and he's going to make well over 6 figures profit just on that deal. This also didn't sell at auction. So Martin Roberts from Hamza and Hammer, when he heard the story, he said, I'm interviewing that one. That sounds really interesting. When he spoke to him, he said, how the heck did you structure this? Kerim said, I had a good teacher. So here's what he's bought. Look, Mortlake, SW14, there we are, Mortlake, SW14, he bought it at the guide price, 330 grand. 330 grand for a flat in southwest London. He said, once I've extended the lease, and once I've put more than, so it's got more than 100 years on the lease, at 53 years. Once he's put that over 100, he's going to do an extension and a refurb. He said, I'm expecting that to sell for 750, 800 grand. Nice. He learns it at the next level after today, because I've been teaching people how to, every step of the way, how to extend leases for the last 12 years. And I've got links to the solicitors that do it, because as Karim said, elite people know elite people. So I know the solicitors that do this, and it's probably one of the best strategies to use, because there's loads of them. It's the most abundant supply of unmortgaged properties, and no one knows how to do it, but my students do, because I train. And not only do I train them, I hold their hand while they go through it. Finding them is easy. You can find them. Any agent will have short lease flats. You can put that. You can find a dozen of them in any given area and more. But what makes it work is me with my eyes on your deal. That's what makes it work. So refinance down valuations. This is where I see way too many people fall over, because they don't understand what mortgage lenders' valuers are looking for. So they might give them some information. More often than not, they provide insufficient detail, so don't give them enough information to uplift the value, or they place undue emphasis on the wrong stuff that mortgage lenders' valuers aren't really looking for. Guess what? I spent 20 years working with those people. I know exactly what they want to see. So I teach my people to draft a pack that gives them everything they want. My rapid cash recycling module.
Amazing, guys. So I hope you learnt a lot there. What we're going to do is we're going to go for another quick 5-minute break before we move on. So if we come back at 12:10, and we'll crack on. Okay, guys, we are back. So, we are running a little bit over, maybe like 10-15 minutes. I do apologize. I will go through it as quickly as I can. I don't want to miss bits out, so I do really appreciate you guys spending time with me. If we do run over, please do stay with me if you can. So let's move on. Okay, so there we have the Ninja Investor Digital, so the 5 focus areas. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail into the fast funding formula now. This is the foundation of all the modules. So you're at the point where you've had your offer accepted and now you're looking to bridge the purchase. Okay, so fast funding formula. Now what you will see with a lot of Kevin's teachings, trainings, whenever he's speaking, he will always use alliterations and acronyms. And the reason for this is, like I said, Kevin is very big on neurolinguistic programming, how the mind works in psychology. And he knows that when things are put into alliterations or acronyms, it makes it a lot easier for the subconscious mind to store these and to recall them again at a later date. So everything he does is going to include alliterations or acronyms. So we're going to go into a little more detail into definitions now. And these are the 6 reasons that people use bridging finance. I'm going to put you over to Kevin again, and he's going to go through this. This is going to blow your mind.
The 6 fundamental reasons why people use bridging finance. There's my little logo that covers all 5. That's actually 7 modules, but there's only 5 because this Ninja Invest Strategies contains 3 modules within. There's 3 Ninja Invest Strategies within there. Okay, so we're going to look at fast funding formula. Okay, now remember the house logo is the hardware. The 7 steps are the operating system that makes that hardware function. If that's a analogy that works for you. In the 7 steps, we're now at step 6. The seller has accepted our price, and we're going to send a form to Trinity in the brokerage to get us the loan. Now we're going to look at fast funding formula. If you remember what I said to you, this is me teaching my mentees, and by definition you today, if you're a mentee for the day, you might choose to go further than that, but you're certainly a mentee for the day. So this is that in-depth breakdown on how bridging finance works. Definitions, distinctions, development, and double up. All starting with a D. Now, all of my modules are broken down and sectionalized in that way for a very specific reason. Now, this is a half-day module on day 1 of the 4 days. Now, if I was just to give you one constant stream of information, you'd be bamboozled, confused at that point. But if I section it, and each section is clearly identified, and actually what we'll see is, as we go through, there are not only sections, but there are subsections and subsections where necessary, either as an alliteration of the same letter or an acronym that is relevant to what we're doing. Our unconscious mind can store that information and retain it to a much greater degree. So it's done for a specific reason. We're going to look at definitions. Okay, so why do people buy bridging finance? Why do my mentees and proteges use bridging finance to buy the deals and finance the deals? Unless they've got cash, because you'd always use your own cash if you could. So why do they do that? Because the ability to complete a purchase fast sets apart a buyer from another buyer in the minds of agents and vendors. People selling a property like a quick result. If you can give them a quick result, and I'm talking within 4 weeks, within 28 days, you elevate yourself above most other people that they were talking to. So it's a fantastic differentiator that puts clear blue water between you and anyone else they might be talking to, because you'd have to have, there's only 2 people going to compete with you: real cash buyers that have got 6-figure bank balances, or someone else that understands bridging. And in my experience, no one understands bridging unless I've taught them, because there's no other training course in the UK with this level of detail that gives you everything you need to know about bridging to be confident enough to use it. So people buy properties much faster. People buy properties with little money down. Now, I've got well over 100 videos on my YouTube channel. Raise your hand if you watch my YouTube channel. Yeah, quite a few of you. Good, okay. If you haven't, it's Kevin Wright Property. Really simple. Don't have to search too hard on there. Out of the hundreds I've got on there, the most popular one, the most watched one of all is how to shrink your deposit to way less than 25%. I think why that might be popular. People use bridging finance. My mentees, my proteges use bridging finance because with the right deal, and I'm going to give you some instances after the break, with the right deal, you do not need to put 25% down. Actually, I'm going to give you a couple of case studies as well of mentees that I actually help with. I'm going to show you how they do the deal. Now, what does that do? Mortgage lenders always lend on the lower of the asking price or value. I'm going to put some figures on the board after this. So now right now I'm just going to do the headlines. But there are a few bridgers that lend on the value of the property you're buying, not the future value, but the current value, and they ignore the price you're paying. It'll become clearer once we do the next session. Second reason why people buy properties is because using bridging finance, it's the only way to put down less than a 25% deposit. But I'm going to say to you right at the beginning of the day, what if you knew how to borrow 90, 95 or 100% of purchase price? Now we get into the part of the day where you learn how to do that. It's a lot of fun, guys. Okay, buy properties from auction. Now, the traditional auction houses give you 28 days to complete. You'd be very unwise to trust a mortgage lender to deliver in that time frame. When I asked Isaac a while ago to say, how long a mortgage is taking on average now to complete, he said, about 4 months. So using a mortgage to buy at auction ends one way. You lose your deposit because you didn't complete in the 28 days. So almost every auction purchase is either cash, real cash, or bridging finance. So people use bridging finance because it can work at the speed that auction. In fact, most bridges are geared up to auction purchases. Let's look at a protege that implemented that. I'd like to tell you about it. Here's Paul. So Paul, when I met him, he said, here's what he was doing. He was doing the most vanilla of vanilla strategies. He was buying a property that didn't need much work on it, putting his 25% down and waiting for the market to go up enough that he could withdraw it and put a 25% deposit down. It can take up to 5 years to do that. So he said, I'm never going to be able to quit my job and create an income. And critically, he was listening to people that told him bridging finance was toxic. He said, well, I'm not going in their stuff. Have we heard that? Have we heard people, don't want to use bridging finance? Raise your hand if someone's told you that or you believe that. Yeah. If you didn't raise your hand, you're lucky because almost everyone's been told that or heard that. If you want to have a bit of fun, go to a property meeting. When you're chatting with someone, and they say, oh, what are you doing now? Oh, I'm just buying a deal. Oh, how are you doing that? Oh, well, I'm going to use bridging finance. What's their reaction? It'll be, ooh, I wouldn't do that if I was you. You know it's expensive, don't you? Here's my biggest tip. Don't correct them. Because what they're doing, their mindset is ruling themselves out from competing with you. We let them all carry on thinking that way. What you're getting exposed to now is information that almost no one else in the country understands to the degree that you understand it. I've got a lot more to teach you, way more than I can cover today. But you went in a very interesting, exciting, unique world where you're, why do you think I call it ninja investors? Because we operate under the radar. We do the stuff that no one else knows how to do. It's a massive advantage, isn't it? Now, he's the guy that's waiting for the auctioneer to call him yesterday. Remember? He's offered on a property. The seller rejected it after it didn't sell at auction that first time round. That was a month ago. It was in auction Wednesday and it failed to sell again. And he was waiting for the auctioneer. The auctioneer knows he wants to buy it. And actually, the auctioneer said when he got rejected, he said, I'm really annoyed and really surprised. I thought they would have accepted that offer. No one else is interested in this property. Guess what's probably going to happen yesterday? I think if the auctioneer phoned up, and I will check with Paul, the auctioneer phoned up and Paul says, yeah, I'm offering the same amount as did before it got rejected. Here's what I think will happen. The auctioneer is not going to try and get Paul to up his price. He's going to focus on the seller to come down. This is a magical transformation. I see it time after time. I think Nick has experienced it. That there's a wonderful, almost secret point in a transaction where the agent swaps sides. They've got a problem property they can't sell, and they realise that they've got more chance talking the seller down than you up. They switch sides. They switch allegiances. They contracted to the seller, but they stop working for the seller and they start working for you. Wonderful thing to observe. In Gais, it happens almost every day. So he bought an unsold auction lot for 145,000 with a bridging loan of 108 after it failed to sell at auction. His refurb costs were 41, and his buying costs, stamp duty and everything, were 10,000. So Paul was all in 196. It got messy. It was a proper real back to brick refurb, but it ended up looking really nice. He got it revalued using all my tips to what to show a mortgage lender's valuer, but it revalued at £280,000, which meant, look at this, guys, one deal, 84 grand, clear profit, one deal. Paul's not too adventurous, he just does single lets. This one makes him about £400 a month. It's got a tenant paying him £1,300. This is in the West Country, not too far from Swindon. Mortgage is about 917. So where is he now? He said learning BRR from Kevin was literally life-changing. It's the most powerful thing I've ever learned. He's bridged multiple deals. He would never even looked at these properties before. He'd have just gone straight past them. He said now I know I can recycle my cash out within months. He's already got £4 grand rental income. He said, I only need another £1,000, I can sack my boss. Now, if he gets this deal that we talked about yesterday, he said, it's massively under rented. I can increase the rent. It's going to be £3 grand a month. So if I get this deal, I'm out. One more deal, and I don't need to do a job anymore. So, and if it won't be this one, it'll be another one. So he's going to fulfill. Not everyone wants to be full-time in property. Some just want more control over their life. He said, I've got a pretty well-paid job. Doesn't fulfill me. I'd happily give it up tomorrow if I could make a living out of property. And he's on the threshold of doing it now. Did it happen overnight? Look, I told you guys, I'm not going to tell you this is you're not going to wave a magic wand and have £5 grand a month income. But work diligently, do the work. It doesn't fall into your lap. It doesn't fall on a plate. But 2 to 5 years, all the people I've made successful, they've achieved life-changing results in 2 to 5 years. Some have done it quicker, but 2 to 5 years is realistic and achievable for pretty much everyone. Wherever you want to be from wherever you are now, I can help you get there within 2 to 5 years. And you won't need my support for all that time, just so you know that. You'll fly the nest before that, yeah? Okay. But I'll feed you. I'll come back to the nest and feed you as much as you need feeding, for as long as you need feeding, until you're free to fly the nest, until you've grown your wings. So, repossessions, we talked about those briefly, a couple of us at lunch. They're tough to do. Mortgage lenders that repossess the property don't like lending to mortgage dependent buyers. They want cash buyers or people that can complete in 28 days. But they will play you up against other buyers, and it's repossessions are like a slow motion auction. So it's tough to get those because you keep having to up your bid and up your bid and up your bid. But here's the biggest reason of all. People use bridging. My mentees use bridging to buy properties you couldn't buy any other way because they're cash buy owners. Massive reason. Okay, look, when you buy properties that others won't, you make the profits others can't. Do we get this, guys? Yes or no? Yeah. When you make the profits that others can't. Okay, last one is you refurb properties before you buy them. Going to show you an example of that in the next section. We're going to go to a break in a minute now. But it's a concept called exchange with delayed completion. This is how you borrow 100% of the purchase price. This is a strategy. I'm going to show you some case studies on that and explain how you do it. But this is a proven way to borrow 100% of the purchase price. I've been teaching it since 2010. It's no flash in the pan strategy, and I'm no flash in the pan trainer.
Brilliant, guys. Right, so fast funding formula. We've got definitions, distinctions, development, and double up. So we're now going to go through to Kevin again to go into more detail on the definitions. Now, if your mind hasn't been blown already, your mind will be blown on this video. This is the 5 types of bridging loan. This is absolutely incredible. It's all about how to finance creatively. So I'll pop you through to him now. No, I won't, because I've got more to say. So when mortgage lenders decline to lend, bridging lenders are waiting to fill that vacuum. Now I'm going to pop you through. Still not popping you through. I'm so sorry, guys. So 7 steps, right? We're at the last step now. 7. Step 7. This is where you're refinancing. You're pulling all of your cash back out again. Have I missed a video? I'm so sorry, guys. I feel like I've missed a video. Let me just double check. No, maybe not. Okay, a few more of Kevin's prostitutes. I'll just rush through these. So Jamie is making £4,000 a month. He's given up his day job. Kathy, she's bought an unsold auction lot. £1,000 on her first ever flip project. Ever. That's not a bad outcome. We've got Dan. Dan is getting £7,000 a year. So I feel like I have missed a video. I do apologise, guys. I'm just going to go back a little bit. I have missed a video. I have. See, I knew it. Right, we'll put you through to Kevin now. I'm so sorry, guys. Here we go.
You found a motivated seller, like we were talking about earlier, and you've done some negotiation, but you've got an agreement to buy it at 80,000. Now, the basis of all mortgage lending and standard bridging is this: lower of purchase price or value. Lower of purchase price or value. So when a mortgage lender's values go around there, even if he knows it to be worth 100,000, he's going to report back to the mortgage lender that place the loan on 80,000, because that's the basis, and you need to put a normal 25% deposit down on that. So 75% of 80 is 60, which means your normal 25% deposit is £20,000. So they know it's worth 100, but they don't care because they take the lower of the two. So 80, 75% of that is 60, 25% deposit. That, if you've ever got a buy-to-let mortgage or an HMO mortgage, that's how it worked out. Yeah. So they make sure you always put a 25% deposit down. Now, bridges work exactly the same way on a standard bridge. We'll look at the variations in a minute. Let's look at some protégés case studies. So here's a couple of protégés that have done that. Okay, so here's Jamie. So he came to me when he bought 2 properties and he said, this is crazy. I'm going to run out of cash. I'm leaving way too much money in the deal. So he learned how to do buy, refurb, refinance and pull his cash out. And he's now grown it to 11 properties and his cash recycled out. It makes £4,000 a month. He doesn't need to work on a job. He can live off of £4,000 a month. Jamie lives up in Scotland, just north of Glasgow. Now he doesn't need any more. But here's the thing: you don't need 100 properties. You don't even need 50 properties. You need enough to give you the lifestyle you want. For Jamie, £11,000 does it. That's right. 11 properties does it. £4,000 a month does it. How does it? He said, I don't want more than 11 properties. That's enough. So what's he doing now? He's flipping properties, making extra cash each year from just flipping. Maggie, I was with Maggie yesterday. She's in the 100 Club. When I met Maggie, must have been about 5-6 years ago, she said, I love property, but it's lonely. You know, I can't talk to anyone about it. Can't talk to my friends, family, and work colleagues at the time. And she said, I want to get into doing bigger deals. I don't know how, I haven't got enough money. Now, the BRR philosophy is the critical factor in being able to build a whole portfolio from a single pot of cash. So where is she now? She thought she was coming into training. She's got a lot more than that. She's got a community. And it's a community of like-minded people. And she loves the involvement. She's bought over £1 million worth of properties. She does a lot of service accommodation, nearly £500,000 equity, £8,300 a month. She's not even full-time in property because she runs a letting agency. But now she works on her business not in a business. I was chatting with Maggie yesterday. She said, when I met you, she said, I had this ridiculous dream that I could spend 12 weeks a year on holiday. She said, it occurred to me this year that I'm doing it. Not 12 weeks at a time. She said, we go away for 3 weeks in January, a week here, a week there. She said, I'm off to Cyprus. She loves Cyprus. I'm off to Cyprus. I used to panic about going away for 2 weeks in a year. To hear her say that, she said, thank you for letting me fulfill my dream. You made it happen. It's an amazing thing for me. Guys, that's why I do this stuff. That's why I do this. Okay, right, now let's get really interested. Market value bridge. Knowing that you can shrink the deposit to way less than 25% utterly alters the level you can operate at. Let's see how it works. So, take the same property. It's worth 100,000. What does actually, let's make that slightly different. We know that sellers are a bit stupid sometimes and they offer ridiculous prices. Let's just say the seller says, I want 110,000 for my property. Here's the basis of a market value bridging loan. Market value bridges, and there's only about a handful that do it, lend on the lower of the asking price or value and ignore the purchase price. Remember, normal bridging and all mortgages lend on the lower of the purchase price or the value. Market value bridges lend on the lower of the asking price or value and ignore the purchase price. So the value here, 100 is lower than 110. So they're going to give you 75%, but what? The lower of those two figures. So they're going to give you 75% of that, which is 75,000. But remember, you're buying it at 80. You're borrowing 75, you're buying at 80. So you're no longer putting a 25% deposit down because the difference between 75 and 80 is £5,000. So you shrunk your deposit from 20,000 to £5,000. Now, I've deliberately kept stamp duty and legal fees and everything else out of that because I want you to get it at a conceptual level. Detail follows after the value. Who provided that value? The bridging lender engaged a RICS valuer to go and value that property. He said the asking price, they're a bit toppy on that. It's not worth 110. They're asking if it's not worth it. It's worth 100. Yeah, but we're buying it at 80. Don't care. We're not interested in what we're buying it. We're lending on the value. Yeah. Now, why are they not taking a big risk in letting you put down that deposit? Because here's where their security is. It's in that 20,000 discount to purchase price, the value. So they're actually not taking any more risk than the first lender we looked at on the purchase bridge. But because they're willing to structure it differently, they've massively shrunk the deposit. And that, guys, is the game. Let's look at a couple of ones. One I did a few years ago and one I did a few months ago. So here's NASA. When we met about 10 years ago, he was an experienced landlord with a sizable portfolio, single lets. He's done it all the traditional way. 25% deposit down every time. That didn't need a lot of work doing it. Left a lot of cash in there. Had a good portfolio. Wanted to do bigger deals. Just let them go. Didn't know how to do it. He learned to bridge against value, not purchase price. This was a game changer. Let's look at the deal I did with him. It's the first deal I did with him. So he bought a 250,000 property and I got him a 95% loan to value bridge. Imagine, guys, you're buying a £250,000 property and what do you need to put down? 12.5 grand. Raise your hand if you like to buy a property and put 5% down. How did we do it? Because this is a commercial property. It was a care home. If you're thinking it looks like residential, well, you're not 100% wrong because it was an 18-bedroom care home that was 6 3-bedroom terraced houses knocked into one. And the owners have built that up year by year. Every time the next one in the terrace come up for sale, they bought it, knocked a hole through. And that's another 3 bed. It lost its license. It didn't operate as a care home. It wasn't viable as a care home. It sat on the market for over a year. So how did we get 95%? Because the asking price was 350,000. NASA, understanding what I taught him, put the right price in, and it was he offered 100,000 less than he agreed. He offered more than that originally. But he agreed 100,000 below the asking price. The Bridges lender's value went out there and said it's worth 350. Even if it's not operating, the bricks and mortar value of it is 350. So we're going to take that 100,000 discount the asking price, and we're going to fund that. You just got to make up the difference. Game changing stuff, guys. Once you get this, it radically alters what you believe you can do with property. So what did we do? He then converted it. We lent him the money to convert it back to 6 terraces for 50 grand. We got it revalued at 450, and then we got a commercial mortgage on it for 3,600. No money left in. Sale at 350. No takers for over a year. Along comes NASA and says, I could do a deal at that. It's the right price. We did a maximum offer matrix, worked it out, and went in lower than 250, but agreed at 250. Bridges lender value came out there, said, yep, it's worth 350. As it stands, bricks and mortar value, it's worth 350. You're buying it at 250, therefore, we're going to use that £100,000 discount as almost all of your deposit. So that's a nice no money left in deal. What happens then? He said, game changer. I met him here. He came to the not this year's BR launchpad, but 2024's BR launchpad, and he came along just for the day, and he just gave me a big hug and said, "Kenny, you changed my life." And there's no better thing that people can say to me. So he now gets £9,000 a month income, and he doesn't need to work, but he's trained as a teacher, and he says, I get fulfillment by training by teaching in an inner city school for 3 days a week. I don't do it for the money, I do it for the fulfillment. What a nice position to be in. You know? So that £9,000 a month supports his income and his lifestyle. 3 days a week in an inner city school supports his soul. Nice thing. He's published his own book, 40 Properties Before 40. When I met him as a younger man, he said, Kevin, I've got this ambition. I said, what's that then? He said, before I'm 40, I'm going to own 40 properties. I said, okay, you're going to do that? He said, I've got a plan. It's just going to take me 16 years to do it. I've worked it out, I'm going to do it. I said, well, fuck that. And we did it in 3. Guys, that's acceleration. Yeah? 16-year plan was based on his limiting belief about how finance works. I messed with his brain. I told you I'm going to do it. I messed with his brain in a positive way, and we cut 16 years down into 3. He still buys, but he said, I will never own more than 40 properties. So when he buys his 41st property, now he has to do an audit, and the worst of his 40, he sells. So he's now in the process of gradually building up the quality of his 40 property portfolio, because for him, 40 properties is his optimum level. So money more than that. 40 properties does everything. He said, now I've got a new plan. I'm gonna own, I can't remember what age he's gonna do that for. He said, my next game is to own 40 properties debt-free, because he hasn't refinanced in the years, but the rents have gone up, the capital values have gone up, so he's just using the excess rent to overpay his mortgages down. He doesn't want any more properties. And I get that. Okay, here's one I did last year. Jordan and Lisa, lovely couple. They're in my 2nd tier mentorship program, Ninja Aspirers. So the Ninja Investor program is where they learn the stuff. Then if they want help and group support on implementation, they come in either Ninja Aspirers or my full 12-month mentorship, Ninja Achievers. These are in Ninja Aspirers. So here's what we did last year with them. Bought the property 32% below the asking price. There's a theme here, guys, isn't there? Yeah? 32% below the asking price. And the deposit was £4,000. I told you don't need anywhere near as much money to do deals in property as you think you do. Let's break it down. So here it is. It's on the market in Lincoln. Asking price 140,000. They bought it at 95. Richard's valuer went round then and said, even if it's in rubbish state, and it was, they said it's worth 140. It is worth it. But the seller was motivated because no one wanted it. It's on the market for almost over a year. The state of it inside, no one wanted to buy it. So originally, they got their offer rejected. They just followed it up. You remember the 7 steps? Followed it up until the seller said, okay, 95. I'll sell it for 95. So the bridger lent them 91,000 because it was worth 140, and the bridger said, would you mind putting 4,000 in? Now, could you do more deals if you could borrow against the value and not the purchase price? Of course you could. So learning creative finance completely changed the level we operate at. We flipped before I met them, they flipped a refurb cottage to build our cash pot. We're still using that same cash pot for every deal we do because we recycle it every time. So you build a portfolio and we see what a cash price. It's early days. We're already receiving £750 a month rental income. Now we're scaling up. Using Kevin's training, we're going to be running multiple projects together, something we never thought possible. So now they're saying they've got enough to do 2 at a time. For them, they don't want to do bigger deals, they just want to do more deals. That's their way of doing it. Okay, fine. So, refurb bridge, third of the 5 bridges here. Okay. Knowing you can borrow 100% of the refurb costs changes the level that you believe you can play at. Because most people say, oh, yeah, well, I can only do a deal, but I've got to put a 25% deposit down and I've got to have the refurb money. So I've really got to go small. I've really got to play at a small level. No, you don't. Let's look at how this could work. Use these same figures. I want to give you a consistency of figures so you can get a bearing of how this works. Right, here we go. Value, 100,000. You're buying it, 80,000. Now here you do have to put down a full 25% deposit. So they'll lend you 75% of that, which is 60. You have to put the normal 25% deposit down, which is 20. But let's say that you've got a refurb, 30,000. So you do put a 20,000 deposit, but they lend you the whole 30. Now, that means you can do bigger deals because you're not having to fund the refurb and a 25% deposit. You're just funding the 25% deposit. What's that criteria? Is the criteria is make more than 30,000 uplift in value. They want to be seeing you're adding more than 30,000. 75% back. You're buying. Remember, they're buying it at 80. They're not interested in what it's worth when you're buying it before you do the work. They're only interested in what you're paying for it. This is not a market value bridge. What you're thinking of was the previous one, market value bridge. This was looking at. These are all different variations, and sometimes it'll be better to use the market value bridge. Sometimes we'll use the refurb bridge. You don't have to worry. Trinity will sort that out for you. And if we're working together, I'll tell you as well after the day. So that allows you to play at high level. You'd be looking to get that. The end value to refinance, so you'd be looking to get that at about 150. You'd expect to put that up to about 150. So here's some proteges that have done refurb bridging. So Kathy, I met Kathy. She lives in Surbiton, and amazingly, she'd been on a training course, and they said you've got to go to Liverpool. How ridiculous is that? Why is that? Because they don't understand finance. She said, oh, I've got to go there because I can't afford to buy down south. I said, yes, you can. You just need to know how finance works. God, that's 6 hours on a good day. Up to Liverpool from Surrey, madness. So what did she do? She bought a grade 2 commercial office next door to a pub from the brewery at auction. It went to auction twice, it didn't sell. It'd been vacant for 30 years. It was pretty much of a wreck. And then she borrowed, now she bought with cash because she had enough cash to buy that. She bought with cash. She borrowed £180,000 to convert it into a 3-bedroom property, converted it into that, from that into that, and from that into that. And then she marketed it as a 3-bedroom semi-detached property for $550. She was going for the real top level just to see, to smoke out if there's anyone that was really desperate to buy it. She got involved in a contract race. She had two widowed women that wanted to buy it, and she just said, but they both need to sell their own property. So she said, whichever one exchanges first gets it. It's a nice position to get people in. So she sold it for 485, made a profit of 97,000. First ever deal in property that I mentored her on, £97,000. There's Damien. We spoke about Damien before. Here's the first deal I brokered and mentored him on. Wanted to do a multiple unit project and wanted to be able to do bigger deals for his day job. But when you can refinance most or even all of your cash out within months of buying it, you massively accelerate how fast you can build a portfolio. So he bought 480,000, 4-storey, 8-bed property from a retiring holiday let landlord on the North Welsh coast in Llandudno. Got planning permission to convert it to 6 flats, borrowed on a refurb bridge, £180,000 to do the conversion, had to put a 25% down, and turned it into some really nice, top quality apartments. Got it revalued at 510,000, all cash in his back in his bank, and he used it to buy his next property. Where is he now? So he's got 4 HMOs, 4 single lets, 2 charity homes, 13 holiday lets, nearly £1 million equity, £22,000 a month, and he quit his job in January 2023, and he's now gone back to his home country of Poland for this year. But he's lived in Indonesia, he's lived in Spain. So each year he's got 2 young children. Each year him and Anya just say, where do we want to live this year? And they go and rent somewhere. What lifestyle? incredible. Took him, so January 23, he did my training in 2017. Took him 6 years to quit his job, but he cut it down from 5 days a week to 3 days a week to 2 days a week as his property. Now, could he have done it faster? He probably could have done if he was, but he's a young guy, so with a young family, so he's not in a particular hurry. But he could have accelerated that to probably 2 years. He really went at it probably year to 2 years. Okay, done-up value bridge. Let's look at that. The done-up value bridge product aligns perfectly with the exchange with delayed completion concept. So let's take you through the normal process of buying a property, and then let's say we mess around with it. You might be familiar with the exchange of delayed completion, but let me tell you, here's the normal process. My offer gets accepted. I push it through to exchange of contracts. Once we exchange contracts, I wait until we've completed, and then I get the keys, and then I do the refurb. The normal way we buy. Everybody buys their property this way. Now we mess about with that. Here's how we do an exchange of delayed completion. I get my offer accepted. We move it through to to exchange of contracts. In that time, I've negotiated with the seller that they will give me the keys on exchange, not completion, and they will let me go into the property and carry out works. And they'll delay the completion long enough for the works to be finished. 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks or whatever. And when I buy it on the day I complete, it's at its optimum value because I've spent the money to get it up to that amount. So we use a done-up value bridge, which, let me show you how this works. Keep the same numbers for continuity. Value, 100, you're buying it, 80, you're spending, is a refurb, 30,000. Now, the mortgage lender, the bridging lender's value doesn't see it until it's fully finished. Let's say the optimum value is 120,000. They lend you 75% of that, which is 90. So on the day you buy it, you're buying it at 80, but you get lent 90. Zero deposit, 10 grand of your 30 grand refurb cost back on the day you buy it. It is seriously the fastest way to recycle your cash. I've been teaching this since 2010. To buy your property. Remember, we're talking to motivated sellers with scabby, smelly properties that no one else wants to buy. They're on the market for months and months and months. So these sort of people with a high level of motivation are open to different ways to buy property. Again, real world guys, remember, don't bullshit. Will every seller jump at this? Never. If they're still paying their mortgage, who pays that? You decide. Maybe the clincher to get them to say, that sounds like a good idea, is to say, how about if I pay your mortgage for you? That's up to you to negotiate. It might be the sweetener is, I'll pay your mortgage and I'll buy it at 80,000. Personally, if it was me negotiating, I'd say I'd add that as a sweetener. Because what's it going to cost you? It's going to cost you a few hundred quid, isn't it? This is infinitely negotiable. Whatever over the line and say, okay, now what you're proposing now, yeah, that works for me. But again, real world, it works for highly motivated sellers. It doesn't work for pretty much everyone else. Yeah. But here's a guy that's made it work better than anyone else. Martin, he's probably my most successful student mentee in this. He's done about 8 of these deals in the 10 years or more that I taught it to him. So didn't have enough cash. He wanted to finally grow up, pass away to grow a portfolio. So this is the counterintuitive strategy I've been teaching since 2010. It's not a flash in the pan strategy. This wasn't his first deal, but let me tell you how he's worked on this and modified it. So he bought a block of 6 flats in a dilapidated condition, and the whole block, freehold. And he agreed to purchase it at 160. He then privately borrowed 250,000 to refurb the whole block. Got it revalued at 675. So the bridging lender said, yes, we'll lend you 160 on 675 valuation. He now rents it out on service accommodation, makes 10 grand a month just from that block of flats. So over the years, he's done 8 properties as part of his portfolio that was done on this exchange of delayed completion and delayed completion and backed up by done-up value bridging. Learning this was even possible allowed me to build my portfolio significantly faster. So over 10 years, he's grown his portfolio to more than 10 million, gets more than 25 grand. And it's allowed him to have a lifestyle. He's got a girlfriend in Mexico, and they spend half the year in Mexico and half the year, and she spends half the year in the UK. So they coexist between two continents. What a nice lifestyle. Property has allowed him to do that. Here's Ben. Ben wanted to do fixer-uppers, didn't know how to finance a mortgage and properties. So he found, and I showed him how to finance two-bedroom flats. He bought the pair, both flats for 80,000 because they were rough. The dead rats came as no extra charge. There you go. Borrowed on a refurb bridge, £57,000 for the refurb cost. Got it revalued commercially as a holiday at 300,000, and it makes an average 12.5 grand a month. Best ever month, £17,000 in Scarborough for two-bedroom flats. Amazing as well. There we are. So cross collateral bridge, last of the ones. Now all these ones, you can't mix and match them. You've got to pick one of them. But the cross collateral bridge, you can do it on its own or buddy it up with any of the other four. What is the cross collateral bridge that's different to these? It's lending on a property that you already own. It's borrowing money against a property that you already own that's got equity in it. Let's show you how this works. Now, it does work if you've got a mortgage on it. Typically, to make it work, you need to have equity of at least 50% of the property. If you've got a property with 50% or more equity, this strategy is open to you to use if you want to. It can be the property you live in, or it can be a property you rent out. Doesn't make any difference. It works just the same. So the question is, does it lead the current mortgage lender to agree? It does. And the good news is, most of them do. So let's say you've got property A, it's got no mortgage. Let's use this one for that. And you want to buy property B. That's the one you want to buy. Okay. Now, we know already that bridges tend to lend 75%. So you can get 75% on this, but you need a 25% deposit. We're going to ignore the variations because that would just get too complex. Just go on straightforward purchase bridging, 25% down. Okay. Now, you might not have 25% deposit, which means you couldn't normally do this deal. Or you have it, but you want to keep it for some other reason. Now, if they'll lend 75% on the one you want to buy, and you've got a property with no mortgage on, they'll lend you 75% on that too. So how does this work? You can be a 25% deposit, use some of the equity here to fund that. You can also use, you wanted to, pay for the refurb money out of a property that you already own. So you can take some of the equity out of here, and you can fund that. That's how cross-collateral bridging works. Now, let's say if you own a property with no mortgage on, brilliant, that'll work. If you own a property with some mortgage on, as long as it's less than 50% of the value, you can use this. Either way, your money comes back to you either by selling it properties you already own. Owners have a whole new world of possibilities for properties you could actually buy. So here's a protege that implemented. Here's Aston. So when we met, Aston built up, and his wife Julie built up a holiday let portfolio on the Northumberland coast. Did it all normal way, 25% deposit and holiday let mortgage. And then he said he found property number 8. He said, great, now I've got another one. Here's the next one in my portfolio. Haven't got any cash. Went to his mortgage broker that arranged all 7 mortgages. Said, what do we do now? And he said, can we refinance? He said, no, they're all at 75%. What do I do? His broker said, be grateful for what you got. Ooh, spicy. And he said to Julie, he said, I'm not accepting that. There's got to be a way that I can grow my portfolio without having to save up 25% each time. So this was in COVID. He got on the internet, he started browsing and looking on YouTube and other things, and he found this guy in a yellow shirt who told him the answer, cross-collateral bridging. Now, the most expensive of the 7 properties was 262,000 because that was a 25% deposit he had. The first deal I worked with him on in the same town, 1.4 million. And just so you know, he didn't win the lottery. He didn't suddenly inherit £500,000. He just understood finance. This is how much it changes people's lives, guys. He just understood finance. Now, we didn't get that, but we did buy the property next door, because that 1.4 million, there was 7 flats on a single title. We bought the one next door, 4 flats on a single title. How did we create the cash? I drilled down and looked at his portfolio and looked at all 7, and we worked out, are they all good long-term properties? He said, well, actually, when he looked at it, no, they're not, because 3 of them had problems. 2 of them had parking issues. There's a little fishing village, and there's way too many cars for something that was built 200 years ago when cars didn't exist. So parking was a real issue. The 3rd one, they were building, there was parking problems, but they're building more houses that were going to make it even worse. So we said, let's get rid of them. So we sold the 3 worst properties to create some cash, which gave us the ability to borrow that. And now, let's ratchet this up a level. How did he go from 262 to 1.4 million? He used his mum and dad's unencumbered property worth £500,000. Because guess what? You don't even have to own it. As long as someone comes in on the loan, is prepared to sign their property. Now, let me be clear. That won't be someone you met at the property meeting last week, but it could be someone that's well known to you, usually a family member. So when Aston went to him with his proposition, he played the whole thing out. Look, we've got these 7 flats, and his mum and dad said, we can have it when we die, son, so you might as well use it now. That's just how it worked out there, okay? So his turnover went from 60 grand a year when we met to 160 grand a year. Now gets 13 grand a month out of that. I love this. Said Kevin's training poured lighter fuel on my property journey. I know exactly where I'm heading. I'm going to talk about portfolios. Sometimes people want to buy portfolios. John was talking about they get portfolios. Now, I'm going to talk about using that, step 3 of making offers. So let's quickly go through portfolios. We're going to use a market value bridge to buy portfolios. You get a discount to the asking price, because you're buying a job lot. Let's just say it again, round figures, value this time £1 million. No, you buying lot, you're never going to pay market value. You're buying a chunk of properties, 3, 5, 7, 10, however many it might be. Okay, now let's say motivated seller, you've managed to negotiate a 25% discount, so you're buying it at £750,000. Now, the bridges valuer goes around there, values all the properties and says, yep, it's worth £1 million. It is worth. So what we're going to use for your deposit, we're going to use, not entirely, but we're going to use that 250,000 discount to asking price as part of the value. Now, you probably wouldn't get 75% on a portfolio like that. They want to go lower and make it more risk averse. Might get 70, but let's just say you get 65%. 65% of £1 million, because it's worth £1 million, they'll lend you 650,000. Going headline figures, so you get it conceptually. You're buying it at 750, so your deposit is £100,000, and they'll use the £250,000 discount as the balance. So very quickly, using market value bridging, it's feasible to buy £1 million worth of property with 100 grand worth of cash. Let's ratchet out one stage further. Cross-collateral bridging. If you haven't got £100,000 cash, but you have got £100,000 usable equity in a property that you own already, you can take a cross-collateral loan for that 100,000. So then you can buy using both properties, a portfolio you want to buy, plus the property or properties that you've got the equity in. You can buy £1 million worth of property with no hard cash. You will need to do valuations, you will need to do legal fees. But now, how crazy is this? You can buy £1 million worth of property and you haven't got any deposit down. Let's make it one stage further crazy. If the equity is sitting in the property, but it's not yours, but it's someone you own, like Aston with his mum and dad, you can buy £1 million worth of property with no cash and using someone else's property as collateral. When you understand finance, guys, the whole world opens up.
When you understand finance, the whole world opens up. Absolutely brilliant. So there we go, the 7 steps for a predictable BRR outcome. So here's Jamie. He's making £4,000 a month. He's given up his day job. Kathy, you heard Kevin talk about her just now. £97,000 profit from her first ever flip project. Ever. Crazy results. Dan, his portfolio is 1.1 million. He's getting 7,000 per month. So you might be wondering what your next logical step might be. So I would like to invite you to consider Ninja Investor Digital. So I'll just remind you what's included. So you get the over 17 hours of film studio quality videos and lifetime access. Never get denied access. Here we go as another quick snippet. So Kevin actually hired out a film studio with multiple cameras.
Hey, welcome back. So we're down to the final section of the negotiation transformer, and you'll know if you've been watching this. We're doing the speech acronym. We've gone through select, position, emotion, acquire, cash. We're now on hold firm. Okay. So what we're going to look at here is how to maintain credibility and.
Awesome. Right, we'll skip through that because I don't want to keep you too long. Now, Kevin is big on guarantees. So this is his guarantee. 7-day or have it your way. No quibble, no questions asked. You just have to say, but it wasn't me. I reviewed the material, but I'd like a full refund. And a lot of his mentees actually use this, especially if they came to an event or they came to a workshop and they had a partner that they needed to speak to before they wanted to sign up. They took advantage of this guarantee, 7-day have it your way, because it's so much easier to show someone than it is to try and remember everything and tell them yourself. So yep, 7-day or have it your way. Almost no one's ever requested their money back. The unlimited 3-trigger deal finder sessions, so finding the most profitable deals with the least competition and everything else there. The implementation day is absolutely vital, ongoing support. So anything that you need help with, anything you want to go through, maybe analyzing the deals, speaking to agents. Kevin runs those days himself. They're quarterly in-person days. They are dotted around the country, so no one gets a short straw. So they are in Bristol, London, Birmingham, and Leeds. Again, it's just going through the 7 steps and having someone hold your hand along the way. Private Facebook group. Remember, Kevin's in there every single day answering questions personally in there. Matt and Charlotte, remember, over £1 million worth of property and £7,000 a month. Harpreet, over £400,000 flipping properties at auction, and he's now started refinancing projects. So he's on just under £3,500 a month. Steve, he's on £5,000 a month. Plus he has a wife. Don't know how much that would be worth. Priceless. So how do you get the same results as those that I've mentioned? I would like to invite you to join Ninja Investor Digital. Now, who is it for? Because it's not for everyone. Excuse me. It's for you if you want to be smart with how you finance your deals from the very first deal, or if you want to correct any financial mistakes that you've made that have made you short of cash, or to build on your success to date. I know we do have a couple of quite experienced people here, but want to scale it to a whole new level. For you, if you want to play a 200 to 300% bigger game with just resources that you have available to you right now. It's for you if you want to make the transition to a full-time investor. Not everyone does, or at least get a better work-life balance. Now, let me tell you who it's not for. So it's not for those people who like learning but don't take action on that knowledge. So it's not for those people who like shelf development, as we call it. It's not for people who do not like change. It's definitely not for people who just like to follow the herd. We like to observe the masses and do the opposite. It's not for those who are pretty comfortable with their results over the last 5 years. And it's definitely not for people whose get up and go has got up and gone. Because what got you to where you are is not going to get you to where you want to be. So it's not for those people who aren't willing to upgrade their beliefs on what's possible for them to achieve with the resources currently available to them. but it is for you if you believe that what you do in the next year will determine how you live your next 10 years and how your children live the next 10 years. It's for you if you want to become irresistible to estate agents, so you get a shot at their juiciest deals before they go on the open market. If you want to buy the properties with the biggest profits and the least competition. If you want to maximize your refinance valuations to put all or most of your cash back in your bank and not stuck in your property so you can go again. This program will give you the blueprint of BRR. So not only what to do, but in what order and sequence, logical and easy to follow steps that when followed produce predictable and life-changing results. Predictable. Let me be clear. What you will experience is completely unique. Trust me, I've seen a lot of what's on offer out there. And it's unique because no other property finance broker has made this level of commitment to transforming lives. I'm sure you may have experienced transactional property training when you pay, you learn, you leave. This is unique because you experience community-based training. So you learn, you share, and you stay forever. You never leave. Trust me, you never leave. So Ninja Investor Digital has been honed and refined from Kevin's decades of experience as a property finance broker, many hundreds of loans brokered over many years, from single buy-to-let mortgages to multi-million-pound development loans and everything in between, which means you're getting the very latest up-to-date way to make BRR work. That's which properties to buy, where to find them, how much to pay for them, who to buy them from, which improvements add the most value, and how to maximize the refinance valuation. But it's not just that, because as founder of the Ninja Investor Digital, Kevin has an almost endless list of case study proteges. You've seen just a handful of them today. And these are people that have made the same journey that you're here to make. So whether that's full-time property investor or achieving a work-life balance that they dreamed about, it's life-changing results. So let me ask you a question. Is Kevin Wright's Ninja Investor Digital the missing link that you have been looking for? This month there are 6 digital places left. Like now I said, remember I said there are limited spaces, so there are 6 spaces left this month. I do one of these every single week, so we're able to take on maybe 1 or 2 people each time. So if you do want in fact, to join the Ninja Investor Digital, you will not need to invest 3892. Remember I said Kevin likes to share the risk with his proteges. So this is Kevin's scholarship fund. So Kevin will cover a substantial portion of your training and fees, and you pay that portion back when you've made £25,000 clear profit from his training. So there is a list of qualification criteria to qualify for the scholarship fund. So we need at least 2 hours of study per week. Most people find this pretty doable. A lot of people do a lot more than that, but we need about 2 hours per week. Attend at least one of the 3 Trigger Deal Finder sessions. Share your implementation activity in the digital Facebook group, the private group. You must have a can-do positive attitude and be ambitious to better yourself, which I think we can already tick off because you're here today. And you do need some cash, so you will need around 20 to 30,000 minimum. This could be yours or somebody else's, or as we've just heard, it could be equity in a property that you or someone you know already owns. So there we go. For the 17 hours film studio quality training, the unlimited 3 Trigger Deal Finder sessions, the quarterly implementation days, and the private Facebook group access, the scholarship investment is actually a deposit of $892 and 2 further monthly payments of $892. So if you think that this is something that's for you, all you have to do is scan that QR code right there, and you can get studying later on today. But there's more. Now, Kevin likes to reward action takers. He believes that how you invest in yourself and how you invest in educating yourself is very similar to how you invest in property. So he likes to reward action takers. So we do have a fast settlement deferment. This is one of two things that's going to help you. So if you want to just get it all over and done with in one go, you can invest a single installment of 1892. Now that puts, I believe, over half the risk onto Kevin. That's how confident he is that he will make you successful. He's willing to take on more of the risk and take the rest of the investment once he's helped you become successful. I don't see any other trainer doing this. Now, again, for the action takers who are on board with us today, Kevin's authorized me to give an additional platinum ticket to the BRR Launchpad. Now, this happens once a year in March. It's led by Kevin. There are multiple speakers, but it's mainly Kevin in a high quality venue. So it's at the Marriott Hotel at London Heathrow. And here is what you get. So the pre-event Deal Finder Zoom session, the video series 7 Ways to Finance Your Next Purchase, discounted bedroom accommodation, that is first come, first serve, speedy entry, so you can pick your seat, whether you want to sit right in the front or you want to lurk in the back. Everyone's different. Comprehensive workbook. This is a printed workbook because Kevin wants you to be focused. He doesn't want you to be constantly writing down everything. So all the slides are in the workbook. If you have little notes that you can write, you absolutely write them in there. Entry to day 2 post-event ticketed drinks reception. So this is 7 till 9 p.m. Who doesn't want Kevin buying them drinks for a couple of hours? I know I do, so I'll be there. You get the whole event video recording at a discounted price of $192. In-room access to all the sessions. And again, Kevin wants people to concentrate. So he pays for your parking and he pays for 3-course hot lunches, quality, top quality food, refreshments in the breaks, snacks, things like this. So you don't have to worry about anything at all. Now, when these tickets go on sale, they're not on sale just yet because it is in March. When they go on sale, I believe in January, the ticket price is $1,092. Now, if you are doing property with a business partner or a life partner, Kevin wants them there with you. So you will also get a free platinum ticket for your business or life partner. You just need to let us know their name and their email address so we can register them. And the on-sale ticket price for a partner is $546. So you're getting over £1,500 complimentary tickets. Amazing event, this 3-day event. In addition to that, he will also give you everything that we've gone through for your business or life partner complimentary. So buy one, get 2 free. Excuse me, buy one, get the second one free. And that is for if you're doing property with a business or a life partner. Okay, so we have a single installment of 1892 or 3 monthly installments of 892. All you have to do is scan that QR code. Remember the Invisible Investors Guarantee, 7 days or have it your way. No questions asked, full 100% refund if you decide it's not for you. And it's the 7 steps for a predictable BRR outcome. So there we go. I will leave that there. There are 6 places only. So I'll leave that QR code there for you. If you do want the link instead, let me know and I can pop that in the chat box. We are pretty much done. So what I'm going to do is open up to questions. So if anyone has any questions at all, pop them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask me. What I will also do is I will pop my Calendly link in here if anyone would like to speak to me further. And we also have my phone number. If you have any questions, feel free to WhatsApp me. So, any questions, guys?
I've got a question.
Go for it, Simon.
So when we talked about the market value bridges and the refurb bridge and the GDV bridge, are you having to put personal guarantees against those?
Nope, not at all. Like Kevin said, it's asset based. So it's not to do with your personal circumstances at all. So they base it on the property that you're looking to buy and what value you're going to add to it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, hi. Do we get the recording of this?
There isn't a recording of this, unfortunately. However, you have my phone number in the chat box. If you have any questions or if you want to go through something again, then just feel free to give me a ring or a text on WhatsApp, and I can help you with that.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you,
No
Melody.
worries at all.
Hi, Melody.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah, just to clarify, do mortgages, most companies actually accept the discount value after revaluation, and you don't need to put a 25%. Do they actually agree on that?
Do mortgages or bridges?
Mortgages. So, for instance, it was valued at 100,000 before, and then refurbish and then refinance using a mortgage after all the bridging and everything, say 150,000. So you do not need any more than 25% physically, because the mortgage
Correct.
actually accept the value at higher price
Uplifted value.
as a deposit.
Correct.
All right. Because at
Yes.
a certain point, people do it like the lawyer said, yes, we have received this deposit, something like that, which is not very, very genuine, so to speak. But are there a lot of mortgages who actually just accept the value up, which is
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Sorry, Ken. So refinancing mortgages work slightly differently to first-time buyer mortgages.
Okay.
Okay, because the property is bought on a bridge, so the property is actually yours.
Okay.
So you're just refinancing it,
I got you. Yeah.
right?
Okay,
So
I
the
got
risk
you.
is a lot lower for them.
So assuming you are doing a refinance, but does it work for the delayed completion?
Does what work for the delayed completion? The same. Absolutely, it does.
Because for the delayed completion, you have not actually owned it. You're actually about to buy to complete, but you using the higher value now, but then you haven't owned it yet. So
Correct. However, so you exchange and you uplift the value
yeah.
before you complete.
Yeah, I got that.
So it's on, so it's on a bridge, and then as soon as you complete, it's still yours. You bought it on a bridge. When you've completed,
Yeah.
then you can put it straight onto a refinance mortgage.
Okay, you always
Does that
do
make
it.
sense?
Okay, that means you always do it after the completion, which is funded
Correct.
by the bridging. Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Because if you don't own that, I know you cannot so-called say, we paid the deposit 25%, but you haven't. So I can get it now is only after completion. Okay, I got it.
Correct.
So it's a refinance.
Yes.
It's a refinance.
So it's,
okay.
that's right. So it's already yours. It's a refinance.
Okay. And presumably the mortgage company will see the time frame of the transaction in a short time, and that's not an issue. It's not an issue like, oh, look, you just bought this, and how come this is refinance again? But
Right.
presumably certain mortgage company, they're already into this refurb and refinance, I suppose.
So if you were to buy it on a mortgage and then refurb it and try to remortgage it,
Uh-huh.
that would become an issue.
I thought so.
But because you're buying it on a bridge and then you're refinancing it. So you're doing the refurb. The module, if you remember, Rapid Cash Recycler goes into detail on how to pull the most of your cash back out. So it's all about understanding mortgage lenders, valuers, So you could show them the maximum value that you've added, because if we don't show them the value that we've added, they will
Okay.
go back to what we paid for it, and that's not what we want.
I suppose that's where WP Finance comes in.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks so.
No worries. So we have another question on the chat. EDC and refurb will be an assisted sale. Not quite. It's very similar, but not quite. And the reason it's different is because the sale does go through on the bridge, so it is still in your name. If you were to not buy it on the bridge, then it would be an assisted sale. You just sell it straight away for the owner. However, because we're buying it on a bridge, we're just delaying the completion. So you're still buying it, if that makes sense. And then you're refinancing it or flipping it, whichever one you want to do. Does that answer your question, Simon?
Just a quick question for me. I'm intending to go for an auction, I think in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Are you in a position to assist with the bridging? Do I need to contact you just yet now, or until after I go for the auction?
So WP Finance can help you with the auctions. I would just say be very wary. Have you bought from auction before? Do you have experience in auction?
Yeah, it's going to be my first auction, just to have an experience on how it works.
Okay. Are you planning to buy at auction? Do you have like a property in mind?
Yes, I've seen a property. I've seen one that will be going next week to view before the actual auction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another question, have you read the legal pack?
The legal pack is not ready just yet.
It's not ready yet.
Yeah, what they said is probably going to email it to me maybe a week before the actual auction date. But I'm still awaiting the legal pack.
Okay. The only thing I would say is auctions can be quite dangerous places because they rely on people getting emotionally involved, and the reason they go so quickly is because they don't want your logical brain to kick in, they want the emotional brain to kick in. So I would highly recommend, if you're on board with the training, do the training first so you know how to calculate your maximum offer, and then you can always perhaps show me the deal and I can just have a quick look at it for you as well. Just promise yourself you will not go over your maximum offer, because it's very easy to do and that will just eat into your profits. I've seen so many people do it. That's why I don't mean to be patronizing or anything. I've just seen it so many times. I don't want you to make the same mistakes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, relating to the example of asking price 110, value 100, buy at 80. How come there is a difference? So you're talking about the market value bridge, are you, Paul? Let me just... Yes, okay. Why is there a difference between the value and buy? Okay, so you're buying at 80k because so the value is 100k, but you've negotiated with the vendor to buy it at 80k. So they're motivated for some kind of reason. They want to leave their property and they've accepted a value of 80k. Does that make sense? Was that your question? Yeah, perfect. So the kind of properties that we're going for, unmortgageable properties, because they're unmortgageable and most people cannot actually buy them. That way you are able to negotiate a lot lower prices from them, especially with the portfolios. And it's interesting because there are so many different types of unmortgageable properties that Kevin goes through it again. Things like Japanese knotweed, short leases. There's so many different kinds, and you can negotiate much better prices for them. Any other questions, guys? No, so on a market value bridge, they don't care how much you paid for it. So they will give you however much it is, 75%, let's say, of the value, and they don't care how much you actually pay for it. That's how the market value bridge works. So it's very different to a mortgage. A mortgage would take into account the buying price, whereas a market value bridge doesn't.
Melody, with the market value bridge, obviously they would, although it's not income based, they would want to know how it will work for you, what your exit strategies are, or is it simply on the asset itself?
So it's based on the asset itself. However, they will want to know your exit strategies. So they will ask you in the form, what do you plan to do with it? How are you going to add value? And what are you going to do once you've added value? So they also, well, I don't know about all other brokers, but WP Finance, they like to keep you safe as well. So they will often ask you for a plan A and a plan B. So if you're looking to flip it, they will check that you've got the right amount of profit and it all stacks up, and that's all fine. If you're looking to remortgage it, to refinance it, then they will ask you for some more details to ensure that you will be able to refinance it. So you will need specific qualifications to refinance. It's not as strict as a regular mortgage, but you will still need to provide some information. So they will ask that for you.
So if it was for SA, they would want to know if you have experience, for example, if it's an HMO, that it's in the right, that it's not an Article 4 area, or if it is, or
Well,
sort of all that sort of.
Absolutely. So they will, like, for example, like you said, if you've got experience, if you wanted to be a commercial landlord, you need at least 12 months experience as a residential landlord. This is all things that are taught in Kevin's training, and they will go through it with you. Trinity is the one that deals with the bridges, so she will go through all of these. Isaac will then go through the refinancing. So before you buy the deal, you will most probably speak to both of them just to make sure that everything's all okay. And if it's all good, then you're ready to go.
And with the QS, who gives the sort of little bit of training about refurb costs, like cheat sheets or something like that. Well, basically, that's what I'm asking. Is that what he does, or does he help you with building your team in certain areas? Or?
You're not talking about Kevin here. You're talking about
Martin Rapley.
Martin Rapley, that's the one. Martin Rapley. So Martin, he's a great guy. He, if you contact him on Facebook, he can do, if you have a deal, he can go through it with you room by room, and kind of see, price it up with you. He does also, I believe, have a little book on Amazon. It's only a few pounds. I'll see if I can find it and I'll pop it in the chat box for you. I believe he does do something.
If you follow him on Facebook, sometimes he'll offer you deals. So I've done training with Martin Rapley through YPN magazine. Very, very knowledgeable guy, knows his stuff. You can learn a lot from him just by watching his YouTube videos. That will give you a very good introduction. But he's always interested in helping people out. So he's a bit like Kevin. He just wants to help people. So I'm finalising some training with him at the moment, and he's very useful.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Simon.
He is a great guy, and that's why Kevin works with him, right? Like Kareem said, elite people know elite people. I've just had a quick Google, and it's called the Refurbishment Handbook. It's actually free. So if you just Google Martin Rapley, it will come up the refurbishment handbook, and you can just download that.
Thank you very much. What was his name again? Something Rapley?
Martin.
Martin Rapley. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Simon, as well, for that information.
Thank you, Simon.
Ken's on it. Oh, I love this, guys. We're all helping each other out. This is brilliant. Ken's put a link in there. Another one. What's the best way to decide which type of bridging loan is suitable for the property? Is there a decision maker? Okay, good question, this. So the fast funding formula goes into the granular detail of which bridging loan would go for which property. However, once you've done the training, when you go to WP Finance, or if you go to the implementation days, you can speak to Kevin and ask him there. But WP Finance Trinity will tell you which one is the best one for that particular deal, because every deal's different. I've taken her deals and said, I think what's it called? Done-up Valley Bridge will be great for this one. And she told me, actually, no, a refurb bridge would be better because you're going to be paying more for your refurb costs. So she will calculate all of that for you. You don't need to worry too much about that. You're welcome. Any other questions, guys? Martin Rapley has a podcast. Yes, he does. Refurbishment Mastery podcast. Highly recommend it.